Okay, hello and welcome to episode 5. Episode 5?
5.
The Heresy Hammer. Good stuff.
We can't
even count to 5.
With us today, we have Robert.
Hello.
Miniatures. Myself, Death from the Shadows. Paul. Raincoat.
Good morning.
Hey, and John, D6 Miniatures. As always, our sponsors, Cryptic Cabin and Meadows Miniatures. If you want to buy any plastic goodness, go check out Cryptic Cabin and use our link below if it works, Rob. And we get loads of money that we spend on hookers and cocaine.
We don't do that.
So before we start the show, kind of serious point, one of the guys, Tom from Heresy on the Hill in Burgess Hill, had some I don't really know the ins and outs of it, so I don't want to go into too much detail, but essentially a member of his family has been diagnosed with terminal cancer. So they're doing an event, I think, on the 16th, which is like a kind of get together, raise a bit of money. And they're also doing a, what's it called, John?
I think that we're going to be doing like a paint-a-thon, a bit of a sort of a hobby sesh. But truth be told, get onto Instagram and find Tom on heresy _on_the _hill and message him and ask how people can get involved, either with donating or kind of helping out. And
they've got a funding thing, haven't they?
GoFundMe.
GoFundMe, that's the word I was thinking of, which we'll put a link down below. So please give lots of money. Cancer's one of them. I don't know anyone that doesn't know someone who's been affected by cancer. So let's dig deep for that one. And then, yes, rules correction. We made, believe it or not, we made a mistake.
I think we need to have a permanent corrections and clarification section right at the beginning of the show. So
So I mean,
it's a good apology section.
What I will say before we go too balls deep into it is it's a new edition. So everyone's going to be making mistakes, like partially because some of the rules are just so fucking badly written, and partially just because it's a new edition. You're going to make rules mistakes. So we were talking about the Kratos last episode, and we mentioned that the Spartan has 10 last cannon shots, which it doesn't. These are the rules. So as you can see here, the last cannon array is heavy 2 twin-linked Sunder, and it has a twin-linked last cannon as well. But in the paper rules book that came with the box game, it told you that last cannon arrays were heavy 4. So that's where our mistake came from.
Well, no, this is a separate mistake, because actually, in theory, it never had 10. It either had 9 or 5. So we've got it wrong twice.
So
somehow,
not only were we wrong, we're also really shit at maths. So anyways, we got it wrong. Thanks to the guys that messaged in the comments.
I think we've got about 850 subscribers on YouTube now, and I think 900 people messaged us to say you fucked this up. So
why those other 50 aren't subscribed?
Exactly, either unsubscribed or on.
I think it was more like 2, to be honest. But
but there wasn't a whole lot of people that actually messaged us about it. No,
everyone was like, "Wow, Spartans 10 playing games at a local club." Like, are you sure this has 10? Yeah.
These knobheads on YouTube say it's 10 shots.
So, like, just a quick one on this then. Does this change your mind on the Kratos, or does it not affect?
It changes my mind on the Spartan, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
but we will come to that. Spoiler alert: we'll come to that later on.
I should have probably said what we're going to talk about, actually. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm suffering from a hangover today, a 2-day hangover. So I'm on even less point than I am normally.
So I because we obviously compared it most readily to the Spartan, thinking it was
Yeah.
10 last kind of shots. I think that was the big thing, and that's how we made our comparisons against the points. I think for me, I think it's slightly better than perhaps what I thought, and I think that what John said about ranged melter is really valid now. I think that the melter is just so good in this edition, having played a couple of games. But I think that the thing that's come to light, and again, I'm sure we'll talk about this later, is that vehicles just aren't as survivable because of range melter as they were before. So I think the Kratos is probably good against when you compare it against the Spartan, but I still think they're overpriced because I think they can just be one-shotted now, and I think I think that it's just because you're probably going to put you're probably going to upgrade it with last cannons, and then you're going to be looking at sort of 350 points once you start putting your upgrades on it, and I think even then it's just a bit too many points for what it does for me.
Yeah, Paul, any changes in thoughts?
No, I agree with what Rob said. Yeah, it's a pricey one, and the discussion that we had last episode with the melter and how strong melter is in this version. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Yeah.
I mean, it did change my mind, because I was kind of like, why would you not just take a Spartan? And now I'm like, well, a Kratos would be a much better anti-tank than a Spartan. But I hear what you're saying about vehicles in general kind of feel like they're going to be weaker in this edition.
Yeah.
But then who knows?
I think we still need to give a lot of time.
That's
to get our heads around everything. I'm going to be. I haven't run my Kratos yet. I've got a game on Monday where I'm going to be taking one, if not two, just to give them a bit of a run out. But I still think it's got play. But then again, I'm playing Iron Warriors, so I think its potency is somewhat improved. So I think, however, on the flip side, there's something else we'll come and touch on later on that I think might end up being more of a solid choice than the Kratos. So we shall see.
But yeah, I mean, I remember when we first started playing Heresy First Edition, everyone ran a Primarch in a Spartan. That was, you just saw Spartans everywhere. So everyone started working out how to kill Spartans. And then you never saw Spartans because everyone knew how to kill Spartans. So I think there's probably an element of everyone's worrying about Contemptors. No one's thinking about vehicles. So who knows what will happen. But yeah, so I think the Kratos still has some legs. I don't think it's terrible, and it's a fucking cool model, isn't it? So I would definitely run it. I'd say definitely, I'd most likely run it as anti-tank.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool. Okay. Heresy Hammer. So up first we've got at DS Miniature Painting. This is one of the Primarchs from the box set conversion.
I mean, Praetor, not Primarchs.
Praetor, sorry, I told you I was on there.
Jesus, you need to get your shit together, scared.
Lee, do you want to just go and sort of sit outside for 5 minutes and sort of warm up a little bit while we take over?
Can I just go and have a little cry?
Yeah. Don't cry, but just go have a little sit. Just sit in the sun for 5 minutes. Just go find a nice rock somewhere and warm up, and we'll just
thoughts. Shut up. Thoughts on this, Rob?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it looks really awesome. It's really well painted. I think for me, the swords that particular sword is just very, very long. But I think it's awesomely painted. And he's done a great job, and I think he's made what Dark Angels should look like.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. I quite like that sword though. I think because he's extended the handle, so it's almost like a half spear sword.
Sword thing.
It kind of negates the fact that the sword is so fucking.
You're not going to use it to parry much, are you? There's just for cleaving.
It does feel very Tyrannic Greatsword.
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
I really like it.
I think this is probably one of my favorite conversions I've seen of the Primarch.
You mean the Praetor?
Next. I did that on purpose. Adaptus Lupercalios. Thoughts on this, John?
I think it's perfect. Actually, I think it's absolutely perfect. I think it just sums up. I think that kind of quite knightly kind of helm that that it's fitted on with that kind of fate. Like, I really like that sort of like absolutely expressionless, faceless kind of slit that it's got in there. I think it's a really, really nice little addition. I think it's painted perfectly. Like, I think the white's super crisp, but also kind of quite dirty. It's the weathering's on point. I just don't think you can really improve upon it. I think an army painted to this standard would look really super striking.
Again.
Yeah, I really like the Tortuga Mark II. I think it really suits the aesthetic. I think I've actually just been assembling some OG 4-job Mark II, and I do think they do look a tad spindly. I think this looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really good.
No, yeah, I like the Mark II. What have we got next? At E1M1 Slayer. Thoughts on this, Paul? I really like this.
Excuse me. It's really cool. I love the that sort of blue-black that he's got going on. The weathering's lovely. Yeah, it's not too over the top. It's fantastic. It's really nice. I like the brass parts he's put on the turret, on those two sort of side plates on the top turret. They look really cool, just to help sort of break up the black blue a little bit more.
There's quite a few pictures up, so I struggled which ones to pick. But I really like the kind of the blue highlights. It just gets cold kind of, I don't know, that kind of cold calculating iron hands feel. And next up, Adam paints 09 with Sons of Horus Contemptor. Talk to me about this, Robert.
It's really lovely. It's really well. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? I mean, it's really well weathered. And the base, from the base to the paint job, it just is great. There's not much more I can say about it, really. It's sort of peak Heresy. I like the sort of sea Sons of Horus green. It's kind of I'd be interested to know if he's put a filter on it though, or whether this is his light box, because it just doesn't. I think
it's a bit of a tint to it, isn't it?
Interested to see it in the hand, I think. But it looks great. He's done a great job.
It does look great. Yeah, it's awesome.
I follow him. He's fantastic. Yes.
So this was another one that he's put quite a few infantry models up, and I was struggling and umming and ahhing between putting some infantry models up, but because we're going to be talking about Contemptors today, I went with the Contemptor. But this is a really nice, clean model, isn't it? I really like this.
Yeah.
And good use of transfers as well. This goes to show with a plastic one what can kind of be done. I really like the transfer in the middle under the head.
Yeah, I mean, you've just got to look at this one and the previous Sons of Horus one, which you looked at. They're the same kit, they're the same loadout, and one's white and one's green, but they obviously they're instantly recognized by the different fucking colors. But you can just that kind of addition of like the different kind of takes on weathering and the different
they're worlds away, they're worlds apart, aren't they?
They're just awesome. I think it really shows the versatility of that new kit as well. I think it's top tier.
I really like, and I'm not a huge fan of particularly orange bases on models, like especially when you use that Martian crust and people just use that and give it a dry brush. But this for me is like peak Martian kind of basing, where it's got browns and reds in, it's got sort of yellow ochre colors in. They are fantastic bases. That base is brilliant. Yeah.
It was a thing Fortrold started doing a few years ago, didn't they? They started doing kind of orangey red bases.
Yeah.
Just because it kind of showed off the model better.
That's it, yeah. Although they've replaced a lot of those now. So if you look in the Custodes stuff that's done with those orangey yellow bases, and they've redone all the bases in the rulebook.
Oh, really? I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, it's all done now.
So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. And then the original applesauce, very sexual Blood Angels, Dreadnought. And one thing I really love about this is the base.
The base is amazing. It's so good.
It's absolutely, like, I think Snow's one of them things where it's easy to overdo it.
Yeah.
And I think he's got it absolutely spot on here.
I think a special mention for the filigree and writing on on the
on the scroll work. I was
yeah,
about to
scrolls.
say
because
exactly the
that
same
isn't
thing.
a transfer. That is on my
that
hand.
absolutely pops. That just really
Yeah.
sets it off.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, the orange is fantastic. The black, the blue highlights just above the Keras cannons.
Yeah.
Sort of, as you go back towards the shoulder, the elbow joints is awesome, and the green against the red, the base, is fantastic. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's good.
It's great.
Yeah, it's done a great job.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
It's interesting to see the different styles now as well.
Yeah.
With the Sons of Horus one that's quite heavily weathered to this, which is, a few streaks, but
A couple of chips and
Yeah, because the White Scars one is just totally clean, right? Like literally out of a
box
of
fresh.
a forge rub. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is kind of how I see White Scars, but then everyone does things differently, don't they? So we got a couple of whips. I thought I'd throw some whips in. Anvils of Connor, aka Jack.
Yeah.
With I think this is a recon sergeant.
Yeah, it looks awesome. It looks really good.
I thought I'd throw these in just to show what kind of different takes just on the Mark 6, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So obviously he's done some green stuff on the cloak, but even without that, I mean, just a head swap and a weapon swap, and you got some recon Marines.
I think what they both do straight away is they both tell a story.
Yeah.
I think especially Jack's one. I like what Matt's done. That head he's used is really, really nice. And obviously the clearly the Nemesis bolt conversion as well. But Jack's one specifically, it's just so sort of evocative. It's I think it's awesome.
What's
Yeah,
Matt
it's
used
really,
for
really
the What's Matt used for the Nemesis bolster? Like what's the top bit and what's the
Not too sure where the scope is from. Yeah, not too
I'm
sure.
not sure what the scope is from.
I think the scope is from.
is it the Eradicator's kit?
I don't know. I think it might be from a 40k Scout, possibly.
Right.
Yeah.
They're premium now. Those I tried to look on eBay for some Eradicator kits, and you have to buy the whole kit for like 3 guys and three rifles or whatever. But yeah.
But yeah, at Matt Paints as well is the second one. I think he's working on some Raven Guard, isn't he?
Yeah,
The little-
the little feather just untucked.
Although it
underneath.
could be Deathwing, couldn't it? I suppose, but no, it's definitely
Possibly.
Raven Guard.
Yeah,
Cool.
awesome.
And then we've got the Ash Drake.
Yeah. There's quite a story behind this. Do you know about this army?
No, I don't know.
So I think he finished it up kind of like last week, and it's basically a force. I think he did like a ZM force or a small Centurion force that was based around the Knights Errant. So it's all grey. It's all got those shoulder pads that have the sigilites kind of like iconography on.
Right.
Yeah, it's really, really cool actually. But yeah, it's all based around the Knights Errant. It's a really cool force actually, really different.
I think so. It's Khan's base model, isn't it?
Great, yeah.
One of the things I really like about this is just the fact that his left arm is moving to hold the sword.
Yeah.
The dynamism is absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it's really, really good.
It's the Neiman Reaver though. That
Yeah. But I just really like that. You can just imagine that he's just kind of was holding like the sword on his shoulder or something, and then he started running forward as he's kind of going to grab the sword. Yeah, I love that.
It's a tasteful flambard as well, because there are some flambards out there that are not good, but this one works quite well for 30k.
Definitely. And then the next one at Valerius Miniatures. I'm not sure. I don't think this is Tortuga. I think this is printed.
Right.
Okay. But I could be wrong.
The head looks printed to me, but I don't. I don't know about the rest of it. It's peak, isn't it? This is
that blue is gorgeous.
So good.
So good. Yeah.
Even the edge highlighting on the metal trim. Both sides of that metal trim are edge highlighting.
Yeah. Fair play to him. That's fantastic. Blue's gorgeous.
That's not something you're going to be wanting to replicate over 60 infantry, is it?
Awesome.
Yeah, I love that. You don't see enough Ultramarines. We bash them, but they look so good on the table.
Well, the thing is, they can look really good. I think they are, when done like this, they're one of the most striking armies. They've got that absolute depth he's got to the blue is brilliant. I really just like the super subtle, like kind of pin washing with the powders and stuff around the the bottom half of the leg.
Yeah,
just totally pulls it all together. Totally sells it. This is great. If I could paint an Ultramarines army like this, I'd paint an Ultramarines army. But I can't.
It's a striking model, but it's blue with a white knee pad.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like you say with the blue, he's got it bang on, because it's literally this could easily be a boring model. But yeah, awesome, and I like the model as well. Like,
the model's great. Yeah, I really like it.
Who's up next? At Black Ark Miniatures.
What more is there to say about Phil? I mean, like, it's just perfect, isn't it? That's the problem. It's just absolutely perfect.
The man has absolute. You know, we were talking about Kieran and Adam, but Phil is the same in terms of his precision brushstrokes, and everything he does is super precise as well. And he hadn't been using an airbrush until very, very recently. I'm not even sure that this one is airbrushed, to be honest. I think it's all hand painted, and painting white.
Yeah,
nightmare hand painted.
To get it that smooth is that's a skill. That's very impressive. It's awesome.
I really like the fact as well that there's not a huge amount of red on it. It's quite subtle.
Yeah.
You know, there's a bit on the leg and the backpack and the hands, but he hasn't gone over the top with kind of different markings and actually.
No, I think a dilemma that with white scars is that I find red trim controversy a little bit cheesy.
I'm with you. Yeah, it's a bit.
I find it, because I often associate either just with a matte black or metallic. You know, it's metallic trim around, whereas it's red, and I feel that the Mark 6 work really well because you can avoid all red trim, and I think that it works really well with the white scars because you don't have to make a choice about what kind of trim you need to use. And the backpack being red is perfectly fine. Some of the scars and the triangular bits or the jagged bits work really well, but it's always been the trim for me. I've always found it's not something not quite right.
I agree. Yeah. And then next one at Amphiarus.
Where do we start?
Yeah,
I mean, Barry's done a lot of Primarch reworking for a lot of people now, and I've not seen any other take on Mortarion ever. I don't think, other than the standard model. The artwork that they used as an inspiration for this, and I think the execution is obviously unreal. It's just perfect.
I nearly put a picture of the artwork up next to this just so you could see how kind of accurate it is.
Yeah,
the artwork.
It's insanely.
It's unreal.
I think the thing about Baz is the most offensive thing I find about him is that he makes green stuffing look easy.
Yeah, it's a nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah.
I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago for some advice on how would I go about doing this, and he's just like, just do this. It's really simple. And I went away and just sort of messed around with it for 20 minutes, and then went back to him and just was like, this is impossible. What are you doing?
It's not simple. Yeah.
I don't want to give too much away, but I'm kind of quite excited for his next project.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, I'm not normally a fan of static kind of poses either, but it's fun.
I would say this is stoic more than static.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah. That head's fucking amazing.
It's unreal, isn't it?
The fact that it's sculpted from scratch is it's
fucking mind blowing. Yeah.
Because I nearly put the picture up just of the head, but he did a whip of the head.
Yeah.
Close up, but I mean the whole model's insane.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Cool. Right, next up, Greek Geek 75. Pretty sexual, isn't it?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I really like the sort of the desaturated nature of the red. Like, it's not like you've got that sort of purple pink kind of tone that runs all the way through it. I think it's really, really nice. Again, I'm going to stick my neck out and say I'm not normally a fan of marbling. I think it looks can look a little bit kind of not unrealistic is the word word, because I think actually some of the marbling techniques out there are super realistic, but it's just not for me. But I think this is really super subtle, sets I get up against the red really nicely. And the most impressive thing about this army is seeing it as an actual force, because it's all like he's got a massive army now. It's all painted to the standard, and it's really super impressive.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Attention to detail on that is something else. Yeah, round by the las cannons, the bronze gold trim against the black marble looks fantastic. Like, spent a lot of time doing that and making it nice and shiny and bright. It's very, very good, and he's a bloody lovely guy as well. He's one of the nicest.
And at Midland Miniatures, so I quite like this one because it's quite like a lot of the Imperial fists you see are quite bright, whereas this is almost like a kind of
sort of ochre color.
Which I really like, to be fair, especially with the plasma effect. Rob, thoughts on this as a fellow Imperial Fist player?
Yeah, it's great. It's done a really good job. Yeah, it's fantastic. Really impressive. Even the OSL I like, and I'm not a huge fan of OSL. I think the best bit about this though is the head and the fact he's made the grill bit black, the two kind of bits either side silver and the rest yellow. I think that's the attention to detail is great. The face in particular is fantastic from us. It's done a great job.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Cool.
So please keep using the hashtag heresyhammer. I think we got over like 1,200 photos on there now.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah.
It gets harder every show to just pick. Like I picked a load and then I just kept adding more and then add a couple more and then it's like, no, stop, because otherwise it'll just be us looking at pictures of people's work. But have a look at hashtag heresyhammer for, you know, if you're
the thing that I do on that is I go from most recent and then I work my way down. And if I don't follow those people, I just go follow. So that's the best way to do follow some awesome heresy enthusiasts. I think just literally just get on there and just follow every single person who's posted a picture if you don't already follow.
So I think that's it for heresy. Here we go. So up next we're doing I say Heresy Thursday, but it's kind of just turned into Heresy any day now, hasn't it? They're dropping shit left, right, and centre.
It's whatever gets leaked first gets shown first, isn't it?
Yeah. So this dropped a little while ago now, didn't it?
A few weeks ago. Yeah.
So this is obviously the Contemptor that they're going to be releasing as a separate model. So like it says up there, it's going to come with 2 heads, 4 chest plate styles and loyalist and traitor options, fists and chain fists, 5 different guns to go in those fists, 8 different arm mounted guns, Havoc missile launcher, it sounds like it's just going to be jam packed full of goodness.
I would like to give you my thoughts on this. So this is clearly the kit, the Contemptor kit that we're going to get in a box set. And where before you might feel that a box set kit is slightly weaker than the sort of like your big box set kit is slightly weaker, and then the one that they sell individually is slightly stronger. I actually don't think that's the case. I think that having the empty panels on the Contemptor that we get from the big box is fantastic, and having this with so many options is also fantastic as well. The best of both worlds is you can just magnetize all the weapons and then you can just switch between them on if you get this and then you have the other Contemptor as well. But having all of the weapon options in a kit that's probably going to be around less than 40 quid is amazing, because this would have cost you a fortune had you bought it from Forge World and bought on all those weapon options. So this is
how much was a weapon?
Fantastic. They were like 13 quid.
13 quid, yeah.
And so like it's an absolute bargain. They look fantastic, like the best looking model in the game. And it sounds like there's going to be some awesome looking upgrades for heads and things like that. And I think that this is just it's faultless for me. It's great. It's going to be awesome. Really, really.
The only thing I wish they'd shown us the chain fist.
Yeah.
Right. Is it going to be like the old one where it's basically?
I reckon. I mean, look at it. Look at all the weapon options. Apart from the heavy bolter, they are all exactly the same.
Just purely out of interest, I would have liked to have seen.
Yeah. Although chain fists are not as good as the power fist, right? Just that now I don't think so.
What are your thoughts on the Havoc missile launcher?
Don't mind it. Don't like it as much as the original one, but then I think the original one's kind of quite iconic. But also as well, the original one tends to suit the aesthetic of the army that I'm building currently. But I think it's fine. I've got no problem with it. I don't really like the head that they've shown here, but I know that there's different head options, so that's cool. People might really love it, and that's good. What I'm most excited about is I think you'll start to see people playing around because, as Rob was saying, I think it was almost prohibitively expensive to have anything other than what was considered the optimum loadout. I think you'll see people experiment. Like, I would love to see someone now run a Contemptor with double conversion beamer.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah,
I think but also you'll see it now because you'll buy a couple of Contemptor kits, or your mate will buy one, and he's like, well, I'm probably not going to use a conversion beamer, and he'll give it to you for nothing because like it hasn't cost him 14 quid plus 4 quid postage from Forge World. So I think you'll see a lot more.
Or mad combos like a melter and a plasma gun, right? You know, combos that you would never have seen previously.
Yeah,
that actually have because you have that option. But exactly as you say, what stops you is because either the theme of the force or it just wasn't optimal. And I think that exactly as you say, we will see. This is great. It's really, really good. I think the shame is it doesn't look like you're going to get two big old punchy hands. Right, so it comes with two fists as well. Right, okay, that's amazing. That's awesome. They've knocked this out. There's nothing more that can be said about this now. Like they've done a great job.
Absolutely. Yeah. Are they going to be selling the weapons as a sprue individually? You know, like
I don't think those been discussed.
I suspect not. I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, not now.
Yeah.
Cool. Predator. So this was leaked. Was it yesterday? Day before?
I think day before.
Yeah, Thursday. I think.
And then they kind of dropped it yesterday, didn't they?
Yep.
So thoughts on this, Paul?
I don't like Predators. I like Predators. I just
controversial.
I like Demos Rhinos. I think Rhinos are fantastic. I just don't like Predators. I see them on the table. I'm just like, no, it doesn't do anything for me. I don't like the turret. I just don't like them. Do nothing for me. Sorry, guys. So I won't be buying one just because I don't like them. Even if they are the greatest tank ever and blah, 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 and they're this, that, and the other in the game. I won't. I'm not interested.
I love the look of disgust on everyone else's.
Yeah. I'm really sorry, guys.
I think we need to rethink this entire project.
You may have just walked in. You may as well have just walked in and kicked my children across the room.
Wow.
All right. Well,
it's my initial thoughts. Sorry, mate.
Just the last episode you'll see Paul in.
Yeah. Please bully Paul in the comments below.
John, what are your thoughts on it?
It's a Predator. Fact of the matter is, it's the resin kit in plastic, which is just better because it's got all the options in the box. It's going to be cheaper. It's going to be like I put together. Spoiler alert: some Vindicator laser destroyers last night. And, just like gluing half of the chassis together and then sitting there with this little production line of hair drying various bits to get them to sit straight. I'm done with that. But this is quality. I've always liked the Predator, but I've never run them because I've thought like best part of 200 quid for Predator Squadron. I'd rather spend 200 quid on something that's probably a little more upspool in game.
Yeah.
But now I think they've got some real play. I think the Volkite loadout for me is the one that really shouts. And yeah, looking forward to seeing them. We've got some new weapon options. We've got the Volkite, we've got the Graviton cannon now. It's all in the box. It's going to be available from your friendly local gaming store. What's not to like? Apparently, Paul thinks everything, but that doesn't mean he's right.
Cure for a cannon. I actually like the look of the last cannons. Not for any gaming point. I just really like that turret. I just think it looks cool. But yeah, they've done an awesome job again, haven't they? What's up next? Oh, here we go. Iron Warriors, head and shoulder pads. Again, John, you're the Iron Warriors player. Thoughts on these?
I think they're the best we've seen so far.
Yeah.
I think that they are probably, I don't think they're a 10 out of 10. I think the fact that the bear head is kind of pretty standard, I think it's quite cool. I like the grills. I really like the crested head. I think that will get a lot of love, and you'll see that everywhere, even on things like Mortificators and Praevians as well, and other legions. I think they're wicked. I think the shoulder pads are shoulder pads, let's be honest with you. I think overall these are the best we've seen so far.
Okay.
I think just one other thing I'll say about these is that they really match the aesthetic of the whole of the Iron Warriors range. Like if you think about the Siege Tyrants, like those helmet grills are exactly the same, and there's like, you know, whereas the Imperial Fists, I feel like they're not that the whole range is not quite as unified as the Iron Warriors kind of range, and I think that these look great. These are really good.
I love these. I think these are awesome. I love the kind of grill face. They just scream Iron Warriors to me.
Yeah.
And then what about these?
These are fucking rubbish. These are absolute turd.
Jesus Christ. They're just Mark 6 helmets with little tiaras on, aren't they?
Yeah,
what I don't understand, right, is so with the bareheaded one is the bareheaded one, right? But the one above that with that face grill and the plume, why are they still like that?
Yeah.
Because that looks fucking sick, right?
Yeah,
that
looks great.
So good. The others just look like they're wearing headbands. I think they just look terrible.
They are a little bit He-Man, isn't it? This is the sort of thing, it just...
I really like the bear head though. I think the bear head's fantastic.
I do. Yeah.
And I think that like for me, that head is more Eidolon than Eidolon, like, you know, getting his head cut off. Like him with his kind of like sort of like weird kind of haircut that was always one side down his face. I never imagined him like that, but that's the kind of Eidolon that I imagine. But I think it will be a head that can be used across a range of different legions. But I think the bear head is particularly strong on that one.
I do like the shoulder pads on this.
The shoulder pads, right? Yeah.
And it's funny because I think it was the last episode we were talking about, you know, just use transfers.
Yeah.
And actually, I think these and the Iron Warriors are probably one of the few legions that I would use these shoulder pads.
Yeah.
I think they'd work really well with the bonded studs on the opposite side. And I don't think they'd be that hard to paint because they're not that detailed. You know, the Iron Warriors is just a head, isn't it?
No, the Sons of Horus ones were a bit of a pain in the ass because you have to go around the edges, but these won't be that.
Yeah.
I've always found as well the Emperor's Children transfers, like the winged, like the eagle wing, sits really weirdly. They're quite annoying to get them to sit flat. So I think I concur with you on this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's only like the Sergeant's helmet, fucking amazing. If they sold...
Oh, 100%. I think that is a 10 out of 10, and I think the others are a 1.
Yeah, I agree. Agreed. Right, what we got up next? So this was shown a little while ago. I think we kind of forgot about it. The Mechanicum Army book. I know there was kind of mixed feelings on this. I think there's quite a few units missing.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too fearful if there are any units missing now. I basically, after we got the PDF, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, I think that no player of historical Mechanicum need worry. And I think that all the missing character models are in the Persona Schismata. And I assume that just stands for like the traitor units, I guess, or, you know, the fact, or I suppose it's people of the schism, I guess, is what it literally means. So, but yeah, I think all the units will be there.
I'm really hoping, because I can't remember what they're called. What's the dudes that protect the Titans? The
Secretarii.
Secretarii. People were like, oh my God, they're not in there. And they're obviously, they're going to be in like the Titan Legions bit, I guess.
Yeah.
So I really hope that you can't just fucking take a unit of them to grab Vic, because that's what people were doing, weren't they? They throw a random unit into a
termite
auto-reducted force.
Yeah.
Just to put them in a drill to blow a tank off a table, and it's
same. I really hope you have to take a Titan to take them.
That would be awesome. I mean, it might be a little bit OP, but it would look wicked.
There was too much grab in the game. Already, and then those guys came along. There was too much haywire in the game.
Yeah, haywire, exactly. Yeah,
those guys came along, and then it was just ridiculous. Basically, there's nothing the legions could do about it because there was so much. And then you got these flying bug things that were coming around as well, and that was just an absolute pain. Like, they already have so much anti-tank; they didn't need that much haywire in just like a set of dudes.
Well, the things I think that, like, originally with the Vulture Axe that made them slightly contentious was the fact they were a flying monstrous creature. They didn't have, they were very, very difficult to kill because they were a monstrous creature, so therefore they didn't have armor facings, and also they were then flying, so even more difficult to kill. There was no downside to them. But I'm kind of quite excited for this book. I think I said previously when it came to Mechanicum that I always found them a bit boring. But I think that I just hope there's a little tiny bit more flavor to add to them. And I hope they're one of the factions that we see fleshed out a little bit when we kind of go back and kind of fill in some of the gaps from a novel's perspective as well. Because I think there's so much potential play there that needs to be explored.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think we'll see a lot more plastics as well with the release of this.
I really hope so. Yeah,
definitely. Even the core sets, the Castellax and the Thalax, I think we'll see plastics in those, no doubt.
Yeah, they need a plastic Triaris, don't they? Because that thing's a fucking... It's about 2 kilos just for one.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah. Not many points, so you needed a lot of them to.
Cool. And then we had the PDF downloads released. So Legacies of the Age of Darkness, which was not all but a lot of the kind of missing units, and then I almost forgot we had the rules for the Word Bearers unit drop, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then after that, they released the updated version for the Exemplary Battles.
So the Legacies of Age of Darkness is interesting because I think it's unlikely to ever be updated again unless we get an actual kind of new edition. I think that's it. I think that some people felt quite strongly that some things were not as competitive within that list. So some things are quite expensive or had kept their cost. So the Land Raider Achilles has gone up in points, for example, but it's got like 95% of what was in the list before. The only one I can think of is actually like characters like the Nemean Reaver, who isn't in there any longer, but it does say within there Black Shields will be coming, and Agents of the I think the Knights Errant will be coming as well. But some things have taken a hit. So Ortec Moore is not as good as he was before, and the Iron Warriors, Keir Valen, I don't think, from looking at his rules, is not as strong as he was before. So
I think we need to take a second, just have a 3-second silence for owners of Cestus Assault Rams, who I think were the real losers of this.
That really were, right? Do you want to? What were some of the changes on those? Because I heard they were brutal.
The first things first, it can no longer ram. So
it's just called the Assessors Assault now, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It also lost the thing that really made it good were because I ran one in my Imperial Fist list that I took to your event actually, Rob, a couple of years ago. And it was really good for several reasons. Firstly, it could ram, which was just good fun. To be honest, it was a nice level. You never really ram vehicles, and especially you don't ever see flying vehicles ramming each other. It was quite nice and flavorful, but it could deep strike down, and then it could disgorge your 10 Terminators out of it because it didn't count bulky units as bulky. It's lost that ability now.
Okay, yeah. It could just take 10 Terminators, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
it didn't count.
It had bulky, was there? Yeah.
No, it was transport. It was transport 10, but bulky units didn't count against it. So you could put 8 Terminators and 2 characters in there, with 9 Terminators and a character in there, and it was really good, and it still had some play. And now it's just a Rhino.
Yeah,
it's
I don't get it. Not as good as a Rhino because it's only got transport 10. Oh no, it's got transport 12. I've lied to you. It's got transport 12. But
it's a strange PDF, isn't it? Because some of the units I think they've got absolutely bang on, and then a lot of the units, especially the vehicles, they seem to massively overcosted them and just made them a bit shit. I mean,
yeah. But the short answer is yeah. Should we have a look at some of those units?
But I mean, we've got rules for it, haven't we? I mean, that's the thing.
That's it. Yeah.
And one thing I would say is they've specifically stated on there that these can be used in any games. There's no kind of have a chat with your opponent first. Like literally, these are official rules. If you want to take any of this, you can. So what we'll do is we'll have a quick look. We've each picked a unit that we can have a quick look at. That's kind of our favorite unit from the PDFs. So up first is the Terminator Indomitus squad. So this was my choice. I'm fucking love the fact that they've actually done rules for Indomitus Terminator that doesn't make them just, because previously they were just Tartarus but shit, weren't they?
Yeah.
So and these are troops as the support squads, which I'm a big fan of as well.
But not line. They're not squaring.
Not line. No, you can't take them as your compulsory troops choice, but you can throw them in as one of the 6 options. But yeah, I just really like the idea of it. I think there's a lot of modelling opportunities with these. I've brought a couple of the squads of Gorgon Terminators that I want to convert up a little bit and use as kind of word-bearing Indomitus. Yeah. But from a rules point of view as well, they're 175 points. They've all come with power fists, and power fists are quite expensive now. And it's only
that's a good point. Yeah.
Where is it? It's only 5 points to give each one either a chain fist or a thunder hammer. So 5 points per person. So for 25 points, you could give the whole squad fucking thunder hammers. So yeah, I quite like these. I don't think they're over the top. And you can give them storm shields as well.
And you can give them a Vixilla, and you can give them an unsealed box, and you can give them an augury scanner. What the? Yeah. What? This is nuts.
You can also give them a mastercrafted power weapon for free as well for the sergeant. So you could have like a mastercrafted power axe.
And it's got 3 attacks as well.
Yeah, I think these are really nice, and I think I echo what Lee was saying because I think they're I think they've been well thought out.
Yeah. Mm. So also, how much is a storm shield on them then? What's that?
I can't see. It's covered on my screen.
10 points a model.
Yeah. 10 points. So 15. So all it would be to get a 4-up in bun and a hammer. Does the hammer have brutal now? Or something?
Yes.
So is it brutal 3 or brutal something?
I think it's brutal 2, I think.
Like that is nuts. These are gonna be, these are like so good. I hadn't realized that they just came with power fists as well, because those things are really pricey.
I didn't realize that. I saw that they'd released the rules for these, and I instantly fucking purchased 2 Gorgon squads, knowing that years ago.
I think the problem with the models is that they're just slightly dated now. The ones like the Thunderhammer, because I would just do Thunderhammer Storm Shields on this, but I think that the exceptions that is the Space Marine Heroes models that they've got, and I would probably use those models because those are slightly taller, I think, and more dynamic as well.
I think they suit like some of the legions really well as well. Like I think you'll see them a lot in like Imperial Fists.
Yeah.
I think you'll see quite a lot there. I think there's some cool modeling options. There's some really nice play. Like I also think as well, like the combi weapons.
Yeah.
Like combi weapon and power fist, you've got a super versatile unit in there.
Yeah.
Like really, really versatile, especially when paired with maybe something that we might come on to discuss in
I literally was just thinking that actually. Yeah.
So yeah, I like these. I think it's a good choice, Lee. I think this is also clearly one of the units that's been really, really thought about.
I just love the fact that they've done them as troop support squad rather than elites, because if this was an elite's choice, probably would never take them, because I mean, as a word bearers player, your elite's choice is already kind of maxed out. So the fact that they've made it troop support squad, I absolutely fucking love that.
This is nice. I'm going to be purchasing some after this. No choice there.
So this was Paul. This was your choice, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's the box naught. So I think a lot of people were happy that this was included. Was brought back. Yeah, and Lee looks celebrating. Yeah, just interesting as it's an elite. Would you take it over a Contemptor? Obviously, it's a little bit cheaper. It's not quite as tough, and it's only got 5 wounds. It's a little bit slower. It can take some weapons that the Contemptor can't, and it's got the missile launcher. Its ferromantic deflector slightly different as well. It operates slightly different to the one on the Contemptor. So, yeah, I don't have any box naughts, but I think they're fucking cool. I really, really like them. I think they're sort of like a good nod to the old school. What about you guys? What do you sort of think? Would you have one?
Oh, I can't.
Rather than just sort of rule of cool, do you think they've got a place as
I would like to. We're going to talk a little bit later on in the Tactica section about the Contemptor, and I'd like to revisit that question then as part of that Tactica.
I'll make a note.
The stat line alone, so it's 50 points cheaper than the Contemptor.
Yep.
The stat line, and I think this is the point we'll probably make a little bit later, but so it's 50 points cheaper. That's a fair amount, but it comes with, slightly different stats, but nothing major. It's still got 3 attacks base, so is the Contemptor.
Yeah.
Its movement slower, but its weapon skill and ballistic skill is just as good. Leadership 9, 2 up save, and a 5 up inval. What is bizarre is that what it can and can't take in terms of its so it can't take like a Gravis melter. It's literally a multi-melter. And then that's 20 points. Like, I can see this like getting expensive really quickly if you take anything but like just a bolt cannon and a power fist. So it'd be interesting.
You're going to chuck 50 points on it to get a reasonable loadout, aren't you?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think that, but I think John's right. We could make a bit more of a.
Think the multi-melter is meant to say Gravis, and they just.
I don't know what's happened, but the multi-melter is 1 shot,
a good point.
and the Gravis is 2, and I don't really know why.
No.
Yeah. And it says Gravis on the other ones as well, but something's gone wrong there, I think. But,
yeah, possibly. Yeah, that's a good point, Lee.
Don't know.
I mean, I think it's a good unit, but I just think they're so iconic. I fucking love the modeling you can do with it. I'm a big fan. I'm sold on it. Shall we have a look at the next ones?
Certainly.
So we got Iron Havoc. John, this is you.
So I heard from a very, very good source that these were a very, very late emission from the actual Liber.
Oh, right.
Okay.
So, and I think it kind of shows, and the reason being is because they've got some special rules written into them, which a lot of the other kind of stuff hasn't really got. I think these are an absolute auto include. I've got 10 with las cannons, and I've got 20 with auto cannons. I won't obviously use all of them all the time, but I'm going to mix and match quite a lot. I think these are absolutely unreal. In the meta that we're kind of currently experiencing, I think that heavy weapons, especially things like las cannons, are just so impactful. But let's have a little look at some of the options. So you can only take 4 weapon options, but that's fine. So you can't have them like a heavy support squad with plasma, and you can't have them with multi-melters, and you can't have them with Volkite. But honestly, I think that's kind of wasted in the Iron Warriors kind of Legion anyway. The 2 kind of, or 3 key weapons are what you can take. So they come with the shrapnel cannon already rather than a heavy bolter. The biggest things, however, is the fact that they're BS5. So, let's look at them costed out with a missile launcher. So you're getting frag, crack, and flak missiles this time round. So it's not just frag and cracks. So 5 of these guys with missile launchers is 160 points. They're hitting on 2s. Any 6s of precision shots. You can intercept with them at full ballistic skill with their flat missiles. So they provide you with anti-armor. And bearing in mind, their flat missiles are strength 6 normally, so strength 7 normally, so strength 8 as an Iron Warrior.
Yeah. I was just about to say that. Yeah.
Their crack missiles are strength 9.
Yeah.
Their crack missiles against things like the boogeyman that seems to be the thing that's purveying the kind of initial meta at the moment is Contemptor Dreadnoughts, right? a squad of 10 of these with missile launchers, or actually a squad of these with las cannons, which is what I'll typically be taking, you're going to reliably take down a Contemptor every turn.
Easy, like literally easy. That
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the fact of the matter is as well, when you look at the way that you might be running a lot more things as squadrons in order to kind of cram vehicles into squadrons more, especially when paired with some of the Iron Warriors, both warlord traits and some of the not the rights of war, but things like the consoles and how they can interact with some of these units as well. I think a squad of 10 of these with las cannons is the best 300 odd points you can possibly spend as an Iron Warriors player. 10, you're going to get 20 shots a turn, hitting on 2s at strength 10 with Sunder, with the ability to have precision shots on those 6. I think that these are ubiquitous. I think if you're an Iron Warriors player, you've got to work on the fact you're only going to have 2 heavy supports choice, because you're going to run at least a unit of these every turn. That they do make a lot of other choices quite redundant, which is kind of a bit of a shame. Like I've got a lot of armor that I'm never going to probably utilize, because if you are playing not power gamey, but if you're playing from an efficiency perspective, you're going to take 10 of these, and you're going to take 10 with either las cannons or missile launchers or autocannons. Like the autocannon is free. The autocannon, you can. There are ways where you can get the autocannon to have like 10 guys with autocannons, 40 to 50 shots a turn, hitting on 2s, rending, strength 8. Against medium armor, because you're going to see like loads of predators now, aren't you? Because predators going to be cheap. You can reliably kill a predator squadron every turn with autocannons.
Yeah, they're nuts.
For half of its opposing points. These are
That's madness.
too good.
Awesome. And as we're going to talk about in the main segment, there's a little reaction that if someone wants to have a pop at them, they get a face full of fire straight back at them.
Yeah.
You're gonna take 10 of these, and you're gonna take 10 siege tyrants. Yeah. And then you're gonna have a heavy support choice that's left over, where truth be told, it's probably going to be 10 more of these or 10 more siege tyrants.
Yeah. Most optimized.
Cool. Right, and then next up was the Warmonger. This was you, Rob, wasn't it?
Yeah. So this was an omission from the Liber book. So it's actually quite hard now to get a character that can sort of deep strike unless you're a particular legion. So Sons of Horus and Abaddon unlock it. Imperial Fist, they can have it. They can have deep striking, willy-nilly really for their characters and for their Terminators. So what was needed was an alternative to something like the Charybdis or Dreadclaws, and I think Dreadclaws have taken a bit of a hit generally because they're no longer assault vehicles. So it was really nice to see this. So this is a 45-point upgrade. I would recommend that you do it as opposed to a Legion Centurion, that you do it as I suppose a Legion Centurion comes with a refractor field, right? But if you want to make it a bit more tanky, then a Cataphractii might be good. But basically, if this unit is attached to, or if this Warmonger is attached to another unit, that unit can then deep strike. But there is a negative to it, which is that for every person that deep strikes, you roll a dice for each person. On a roll of a 1, that person takes, or that model takes 1 wound, and only in-bun saves can be taken against it. So I think they're forcing you down a route of trying to sort of taking Terminators, because then you will get an in-bun save against it, and you won't really miss that 1 wound. Because it obviously comes with 2, so I think Terminator deep striking is the best way to do it. The other thing that's quite odd about this unit, though, is Tip of the Spear. So again, it's quite Sons of Heresy, I think, this one. But whatever is, if it can make a charge, it then has to make a charge against that unit. So you can't be sort of like tactical about it. You've just got to charge at it. I think it's so held in reserve. A unit that includes 1 or more models of this special must always have a charge declared for it during the controlling phase, assault phase, if there are any valid targets. So it's not just when it comes out the deep strike, it's also at any point in the game as well. So it's quite an aggressive unit. So you do
basically worldy.
It feels quite worldy, doesn't it? But yeah, I kind of see this more as sort of like a traitory, aggressive unit, really. But I think a squad of Cataphractii, or I think actually looking at what we've just seen, Indomitus with the Storm Shields and Thunderhammers, or Chain Fist or Power Fist, or Thunderhammers and a combi weapon, I think could be really powerful combo.
just stepping back to those Terminators again, because you can allocate wounds now, you can quite easily just stick a couple of shields.
Absolutely,
to a
yeah.
squad
And just
and
take it on that.
allocate wounds onto the shield.
Yeah. And that's not a bad shout, I don't think. What's odd, but you can't take Indomitus on this Warmonger console though, so I think you'd have to so I think that's interesting about how those might interact. So I don't know what the movement on Indomitus was, but
6.
Oh, so it's all 6, so it doesn't.
No.
Cool. Yeah, great unit. 45 points. Yeah, probably if you're running them with Terminators, I think this would work quite well.
Oh, I think that's it for the PDF. I forgot. We got this chap. He dropped yesterday. Another leak. Well done, Gino.
I like how they did respond to They do respond to this kind of thing quite quick now. So,
Demon Engron. I know it's not. Well, I mean, it kind of is heresy, but this is a 40k model, isn't it? But thoughts on this model, Paul?
It's fucking amazing. It's so cool. It's super cool. I'm really glad GW responded after the fuzzy picture was chucked around the internet and the WhatsApp groups. Yeah, it's wicked. I love the head, the massive arms. I think people may use this instead of the other guy. Who's the other Forge World guy we saw at the open day?
Cabanda.
Thank you. Maybe use this and modify it slightly. Probably because
that is just a no-brainer because this is plastic.
Yeah,
Cabanda's massive and resin. And as soon as you pick it up, it's just going to fall apart.
And you don't have to remortgage your house to buy this one.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But yeah, I think it's fucking awesome. It's so cool. I love it. I love the pose, the snarling mouth, and the big wings and the sort of big ripped muscles. Yeah, it looks wicked. And the shoulder plate with the sort of world eaters, the teeth around the planet.
I just think, like, when I got into the hobby, like young me, like the only Primarchs you had was in Epic, Space Marine Epic. Like the thought of having it in 40k was just like non-existent, and now we're getting models like this. I mean, it's like, what a fucking time to be alive. I mean, it's insane, isn't it? It's absolutely fucking...
When you compare this against Magnus as well, like the 40k version of Magnus,
you're
like, what?
I was having this very conversation yesterday.
Primar, but this is just glorious. I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of the tail, actually. I think if I was to have it, I think I might get rid of it, but
okay. Yeah. And what they didn't show us, but what was in the leak was 40k World Eater Berserkers.
Yeah.
And new, I don't know what they're called now, Imperial Guard.
New Cadians, I guess.
So, yeah, potential future militia and potential future Siege of Terror World Eaters. So I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for them. But yeah, awesome model, awesome.
Yeah, I don't think you could have done this any better. I think this is genuinely one of like the awe-inspiring sculpts because it does, like, I had to have a kind of a bit of a sit down when I saw it and just be sort of take it all in.
Yeah,
it's even some of the little details, like I like they haven't gone too demonic with certain parts of it, like Gorechild.
Yeah.
Like with like the head with the kind of the sort of the braids. I think it's just it's fucking wonderful. I think Darren Latham deserves a big old pat on the back for this.
An MBE, I think, is what he deserves, isn't it?
Yeah. Fuck him too, right?
Again, like, I know it's a 40k model, but you can just picture this dude rampaging through the fucking battlefields of terror. You know what I mean? Just you can just.
I don't think Ollie Mew's been able to sit down properly for like the last 24 hours.
It's awesome. So the sword, this goes and tests my knowledge, but that's the black blade that Lorgar has made for him by that Mechanicum dude, is it? Is that the black blade that
I don't honestly know.
Because in Betrayer he gets the Mechanicum dude to make a black sword for Angron, and I assume that's the black sword that he has made for him.
I think so, mate.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'd have
because that's Gorefather, not Gorechild.
That's Gorefather.
At this point, Khan obviously has Gorechild because he gets that at the end of Betrayer when Angron sort of chained up in the basement, doesn't he? He sort of picks up and like, you don't need this anymore.
Doesn't Angron throw it down because he breaks it?
That's.
I don't know actually. Yeah,
I think he might do. I think he breaks the teeth, doesn't he?
Yeah, he finds all the bits and has it fixed.
Interesting.
And then he's like, finders keepers.
Well, you don't need this anymore because it's like a fucking Fisher Price toy in your enormous hands.
Yeah. I mean, and on a side note as well, I really hope we get some. I mean, it's almost the opposite. It's always been like 40k players going, "Oh, I want rules for the Kratos or whatever," but it'd be amazing if they did some heresy rules.
I think it would be. I think it would be on. I genuinely think it would be a huge surprise if he didn't come with a heresy rule.
Yeah. But then
the reason why they didn't release it in the rule books, isn't it? Is because, and they did a Devon version of Angron, is because everyone would have known at that point.
It was coming.
He is coming.
Yeah.
But Games Workshop love to put a veil of secrecy over, so we will get a PDF version of this. But that means that Fulgrim's going to be coming at some point. You know, Perturabo, Demon Primarch's going to be coming at some point. They're all coming.
Yeah, hopefully. I hope so, because this is. I'd love to see.
I would love to see, because I think we're all kind of hoping that they go down the AT route, right, where we have the campaign books. So we'll have the kind of to sort of flesh out the Legion rules and add the extra bits in. I would absolutely love the Perturabo one to have some of the sort of the demon engines and stuff.
Yeah.
And a really nice way of
introducing
some of the kind of corrupted mechanicum.
Yeah,
I think that would be a nice one. Oh man, this is just so good. Move on to the next slide. I can't keep looking at this.
Can't cope. Yeah, so good.
Yeah, can't cope. It's so good.
I think this is the end of. I called it Heresy Thursday. It's Heresy every day. Yeah, that's it. So before Paul redeems himself,
we're just gonna nip off for 5 minutes and leave you with Paul.
Sorry, guys.
So we'll have a little break here, and then when we come back, we'll go into the main segment, which will be
Salamanders.
The Salamanders, and we'll also be discussing reactions, which is kind of the newest part of the game, really. So we'll be talking about reactions. So see you in a bit. Okay, welcome back for the main segment. Initially, we're going to talk about Salamanders, and then we're going to talk about reactions. So first up is Paul with his Salamanders.
Yeah, so quick shout before I start. Quick shout out to the 5-6 Salamanders that are out there. Leave. Genius.
This is it.
Yeah, apologies for missing it last episode. I wasn't quite as prepared as I should have been. Story of my life, really, you know. So let's do some chat about some Salamanders whilst Lee, recovers from his hangover and Rob sips on some Diet Coke and does some modelling. Okay, cool. So much like his brother Primax, the world in which Vulcan grew up in shaped much about him, and he grew up on the death world of Nocturne. This was quite a nasty place, a volcanic planet riven with fire and radiation and violent tidal forces caused by its moon called Prometheus. This meant by sort of design or natural evolution, the people of Nocturne were incredibly tough. And they faced their most adversity, when the moon was at its closest orbit. And not only then did they have to deal with like tremendous earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. This was when the great beasts of Nocturne woke from their slumber to feed. So after he'd fallen into the home of a metal worker, good God, in one of the city settlements, Vulcan was taken in as a foster child. In a short time, very similar to the other Primarchs, grew in strength, size, wisdom, and he spent time working in his adopted father's forge and hunting the great beasts. He soon became a champion of the planet's defense against a far more dangerous threat. Nocturne was kind of used as, the tribal people of Nocturne were used for sport from a class of elder slavers known as the Dust Race. This didn't go down too well with Vulcan. He took the fight to them. He destroyed the slave barges, letting all the tribal people back to their cities and eventually driving them from the planet. So when he was reunited with the Emperor, from the other Primarchs, at the other Primarchs' side, his discovery was kept relatively quiet from the wider Imperium, and he wasn't unified with his legion straight away. He spent time working alongside Big E, learning of the Imperium, the art of war, history, science, and also spent time studying in the weapon forges at Mars with Ferrus Manus. So when the time came for Vulcan to take charge of Legion, he was well prepared, and he sort of came to the 18th in their hour of need. With the majority of the Legion engaged with the expedition fleets or committed as reserves against the Ragnar incursion, the Legion's primary force, roughly 19,000 Marines, were defending a cluster of worlds from a wave of orcs near the Taurus division. So after years and years of running battles, the 18th, along with their current commander, have become trapped on a planet called Ataeum, I think that is. Yeah. Vulcan learned of this, and along with 3,000 of his new initiatives, these were the first of the Legion raised from Nocturne, travelled to Taurus, and they smashed the Orc forces. This unexpected aid in turn spurred the trapped forces of the 18th, and the Orc horde was caught between this hammer and anvil kind of sort of thing that happened. So shortly after this battle, Vulcan then set about reforging and remaking the Legion, and he was quick to unify the Legion as a whole. And when the forces brought together, they returned to Nocturne and began construction of what would be their HQ and their armory on the moon of Prometheus. He then named the 18th to the Salamanders, after the greatest of the Nocturne's predators. And this had a kind of like a layered meaning, like a dual meaning almost, because the Nocturne and Salamanders were not only monsters of savage power, but they were incredibly loyal and to their own blood and to their offspring. And they were always their most dangerous when they're in defense of their offspring and their own blood, which is interesting.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Vulcan then ordered the Legion into formation of 7 different realms, and each one of those was named after one of the 7 great city settlements of Nocturne. Each of these was assigned a Lord Commander, also known as a Protector, and it was their duty to protect the city in time of attack. And each of these cities served as a focus for the Legion's recruitment. Now, Vulcan leaned quite heavily in favour of recruiting from Nocturne due to the native population being naturally physically and mentally resilient. But due to the relatively small population of Nocturne, this did slow the uptake of new warriors. And the influence of each of the Primarch's genotype, along with the variations of sort of various in-programmings, meant that all the Emperor's sort of legions were set apart from one another. I think that's obviously quite obvious, but there were 2 things that clearly set the 18th apart from their cousin Astartes, and this was their temperament and their physiology. So when a fully developed Astartes at its peak was incredibly tolerant to extreme temperatures, they were heavily resistant to levels of radiation, and their cellular regeneration are considerably superior to other Space Marine legions. And only the Death Guard are known to be able to process and resist toxins to a higher level than the guys of the Salamanders. But their gene seed does have some unusual outward effects, and they're described as having ember-like bioluminescence to their eyes. And when exposed to potentially harmful radiation, for a prolonged period, their skin pigment will permanently darken to a sort of obsidian-like or granite quality, which none of the other legions have at all. It's quite a unique thing to these guys. Salamanders also known for their superior artifice. I think that comes from Vulcan spending so much time in the forges with his adopted father and with Ferrus Manus. And the creation of armor and weapons is known to be quite a considerable step up from the other legions, and they stock tons of special weapons, and particularly keen, and we'll probably get to this in a minute, on the flamer kind of weapons. Terminator suits also were considered to be the most powerful of any of the legions, and each of these suits were sort of modified and embellished sort of by its owner and given sort of like personal trinkets and etc. So throughout their training, became masters at close combat firefights, zone mortalis operations, and they were all about survivability over speed. They favoured tanks, gunships, etc. Things like that over sort of rapid attack vehicles, skimmers, jet bikes. So going about the Legion size for a second. When the Heresy broke out, Salamanders were rearming and re-equipping on Nocturne after they'd been involved in quite a lengthy campaign at the Galactic Core. Excuse me. And when they were called to Isfan 5, the majority of the Legion departed. Now, numbers were near impossible to verify post drop site massacre, but approximately 83,000 Marines travelled to Isfahan 5 with losses rated as high as 98%. So they took one hell of a kick in. Yeah, but there were several detachments that didn't go to Isfahan, so several companies were away on deployment elsewhere, and around 2,000 to 3,000 warriors alongside a full intake of neophytes remained on Prometheus. So yeah, because of this, they're one of the smaller legions in terms of overall manpower, with numbers estimated around 89,000 Astartes at the end of the Great Crusade. So never up there as with the bigger legions numbers wise. So I guess we should probably mention that Vulcan is also one of the perpetuals. So I'm sure anybody watching this, listening to this, might know a little bit about the background of the perpetuals if they've read any of the Black Library books. So they're basically a rare mutant with the ability to resurrect time and time again. And Vulcan wasn't aware that he was a perpetual until the Drop Site Massacre, when he was smashed in the orbital strike by the Iron Warriors. I don't think I'm trying to remember. I should have made a note of this. How many perpetuals there are? So there's Vulcan and the Emperor are the only two sort of transhuman. Is that right? Is that right in saying that? Transhuman? Right. I guess perpetuals. The rest are, John Chromaticus, Olympus, and stuff. So I think he was sort of, after the Drop Site Massacre, he was then taken captive by the Night Haunter, by Comrade Kurz. Comrade Kurz had kind of lost his marbles at this point and just spent loads of time just trying to break him, kept killing him over and over and over, but Vulcan kept regenerating because he's a perpetual, and this just sent the Night Haunter even more fucking loony. And then he eventually escaped. Vulcan eventually broke out, ended up on McCrag, and not giving too much away. Not giving too much away back in some way. He's then stabbed by a fellow perpetual, John Grammaticus, with a fulgurite. Is that how you pronounce it? Fulgurite, which is a shard, like a stabbing weapon. And that's the only thing that can potentially kill a perpetual. He's then taken to Mount Deathfire by a group of salamanders that were on McCrag, in the hope they could resurrect him and bring him back to life. And he's now currently sat on guard at the Imperial Palace.
Yeah,
so that's
I think
kind of where he's at. Without going into too much detail, I've kind of given a little bit away, but there's a bit more to it than that.
I think the Fulgurite is like the reset button because he's gone mad from being sort of tortured, and I think
because he completely flips out.
So he completely loses his marbles in terms because of, I think partly because of the Isfahan massacre, but also because he was being tortured by Comrade Kurz. And I think that the Fulgurite was perhaps the idea that it's almost like the reset button, and then then they took him to Mount Deathfire, and then he kind of resurrected from there. But he's still wandering around in 40k, isn't he? Like, he's not been seen for a while. He was in some of the kind of like the newer literature from Black Library and the War of the Beasts and things like that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish they just made them a little bit more exciting. But hey, never mind. So
I thought that was quite exciting though. There's some cool stuff in there. There's a couple of bits. Yeah. Could we flip to the colour plates, please, Lee, if that's okay, mate? Yeah, cool. So here we've got the green armour, which they're famed for, with the almost like, I guess you'd call them hides to a certain degree of some of the nocturne beasts that they've slain on their sort of pauldrons and their sort of their dick cloths and some teeth around the guys' shin plates. But yeah, I think they're a really, really cool striking legion. They're the green and the gold looks really good on the tabletop. I've seen a couple of really, really sweet armies. Do you guys feeling the salamanders? What do you think?
I think.
Sorry, mate. I was basically asleep. So,
mate, you kind of looked a bit glazed over. Yeah.
Wow.
I think they look fucking awesome. This dude on the left here, the one in the Mark V with the Mark III helmet shoulder pads, that's from the new rule book. And I just really like it. I just think it looks awesome. The kind of dark, shiny green.
Yeah.
And also not going too over the top with the flames.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a big fan. Yeah, I like them a lot.
Happy days. Yeah, they're really cool. Rob, how would you go about doing some green?
I fucking hate them.
John's just thinking about what he's just received in the post. You know, how he's going to build it.
Yeah, so they're interesting in terms of a painting challenge. I think that it's quite difficult following the artwork for the flames, because you can see on the artwork it's obviously flames, but what it does is sort of like merges into the armor. Whereas if you were to paint that on, it would just look weird, I think, and I think you would find it really difficult unless you're very, very sort of gifted at painting. So the obvious one would be to do it with a stencil, but then you need an airbrush to be able to sort of stencil it, and you need some quite good sort of HD stencils, or some ones that stick down, one-use ones, to be able to make it look good. But then you get the problem then is that it begins to not look particularly sort of like realistic in the aesthetic that we expect from Heresy, and it begins to look a little bit like a hot rod car. And I think that trying to find that balance, I think, is always difficult with Salamanders. I mean, you could just not put flames on. I mean, that might be the easiest one. I think Liam paints has got some great looking Salamanders, and I think he would be somebody I would go to for some references. But Will Henry, who we know, who's got a number of things commissioned, has also got a really cool, striking looking Salamanders force as well. I think they've suffered. My honest opinion, I think that they have suffered from having the same author do all of the books. So like with Ultramarines, we've had different authors. With White Scars, it's predominantly been Chris Ray, but we've had a few other authors take on those. With World Eaters, we've had a couple of other, and I think that because Nick Kime has done all of the writing, if you're not a big fan of Nick Kime's writing, you basically that's as best as it's going to get. And they never let Dan Abnett have a go at the Salamanders. And I think that had he done it, or had Aaron Bowden done one of those books, I think that this would probably be a different conversation. And I think that probably everybody. But again, I think it's about author style, what our preferences are, and. Yeah, it's just Nick Kime's done them all, and he's just not he's not my favorite author,
I've not read any of the books. I couldn't tell you anything about the Salamanders during the Heresy. I think if I wanted to find out about them, I'd probably go back to one of the original Black books. Read what Alan Bly had to say about them. I agree with you with the flames. I think if I was to do a force, I probably wouldn't bother. Because I just think, like you say, if it's not done right, it just looks a bit tacky in my eyes.
I think that's the risk you take with Salamanders.
And I think, like with the armor on the guy on the left, because some of the models, the Pyroclast models, is it? They have like the flames molded into the armor. I would just do that as gold. Is how I would plan to do it, because I have purchased some fire drakes.
Oh my god! Now it's coming out, isn't it? Jesus Christ! As we were talking, why? This is.
I wanted to buy some Pyroclast, but they'd fucking run out, so I've gone fire drakes. So
why?
My plan will be to do when the plastic Land Raiders come out. Like a fucking force of Land Raiders with fire drakes. And
this has just blown my mind. What is going on?
Where has this come from? This is.
Somebody's got to do the Legion, right? I mean, someone.
I just love the silence from John. He's not even fucking moved.
That's how I felt when you were talking about Predators.
Cannot even begin to fathom how tedious I found this last 10 minutes.
I'm so sorry. I'm incredibly sorry.
Well, it's good. It's really nice, Lee, that you've taken pity on the Legion and doubled the number of the player base. So,
I mean, I will point out that I'm going to finish my Word Bearers force first. So I'm in the process of purchasing things. So it's probably not going to be until next year before I even fucking do anything with them. And then by then I'll have probably just sold it all anyways, because I'll have come to my senses.
I do jest. I think that the Salamanders would like pose a really. There's a lot of potential for some really nice sort of like hobby, like a hobby challenge. I think green is a difficult color to get right, and I really like this really heavily desaturated green they use in all the color plates. I think there are a number of really unbelievably nice looking Salamanders armies out there. Andy Kirk's is a kind of, so if any of the guys in the UK who play regularly would hopefully have seen that. He definitely deserves a big shout because his inspirational. And as Rob said, Liam Paint stuff is really kind of pushing the boundaries with what he's doing with his Salamanders. So
they've always struck me.
He's got some good tutorials on his Instagram as well. So if you are interested in how he...
The thing about them is that I find that they're not particularly complicated legion. You know, they're unambiguously good, I think, is the thing. Whereas lots of legions have their dickheads and lots of legions have their good. You know, even Sigismund's not really a nice character, is he? You know, but he is quite a complicated character. So I think that... they're just unambiguously good, and I wonder whether that makes them a little bit one-dimensional, perhaps. Should we have a look at the books?
I don't think so, but I know what you're saying.
Cool. So on the left, we've got Vulcan Lives. I read this a long time ago. I'm pretty sure that the main plot line is around Vulcan's torture at the hands of Comrade Kurz.
Right, yeah, but it also tracks back to a campaign between the Night Lords and the Salamanders and how they approach war differently as well. And then it's been a while since I read that one. And then on the right we've got Old Earth, both by Nick Kime, and this is Vulcan's attempts to get back. Well, his voyage back to Terra via the webway. If I've got that correct, I think I'm awesome. Right. Yeah. Maybe check out Fury of Magnus. There's quite a good bit in that with a bit of a dust up between Magnus and Vulcan when he's back in the Imperial Palace. That's kind of it, really. Yeah. Check out Deathfire if you really wanted to, which is the story of the Salamanders returning to Nocturne, navigating the rune storm in the hope to resurrect Vulcan. Yeah, that might be worth checking out if you really want to go for a deep dive.
I do think this is where the Legion falls down, like you've said, is just the lack of good literature, really, and I think that's. I think if they had a few stories where they were absolute ballers, there'd be a lot more people playing them.
Yeah.
Because actually, to me, they're kind of like the perfect Legion to start playing. Like you can run the Rite of War where you have Pyroclast. You don't need to paint that many models. Fire Drakes are fucking nails. Their rules now are based around keeping them alive. So the rules kind of guide you towards taking multi-wound models, i.e. Terminators. So you're looking at a small force anyways. I just think it's a shame because I think I could see, because you said about them being the good guys. That's actually kind of what I like about them, because I play word bearers. So I've basically gone from the worst, the very scumbag of the Legion to the kind of, they're essentially what Space Marines should be, aren't they?
Yeah,
like the defenders of humanity. And they protect everyone and anyone, not just important people. I'm looking forward to get my hands on the models.
It'll be interesting to see.
Imagine being a word bearers player and thinking, I've had enough of that. I'm going to go and play Salamander.
Maybe your hangover is affecting your judgment. Yeah.
Well, I've played Raven Guard. I've played Ultra. I'm not playing Imperial Fist because I don't touch little boys. Who else there is?
Anyway, Salamander's done. That's it.
Let's go. Lovely. Okay.
Before John,
Now I've just offended every new player to the Heresy that is doing. So Salamanders. Cool.
Sorry again, guys.
We did have like a serious discussion of just keeping it going, of never covering the Salamander, of just constantly skipping it. But
it's done.
It's done. It's
That's
done.
all 18 Legions done now.
Beautiful.
Onto the main section.
Reactions.
Okay.
So we kind of wanted to talk about reactions, really, because it's kind of probably the biggest change in the new edition, really, isn't it? I mean, we never had anything like this in the first edition, and it kind of mixes things up. It'll be interesting to see how it works out as we get more games. I'm not going to go too in depth in how reactions work, but essentially, it gives you a chance to do something in your opponent's turn. So there's only 3 phases now: your movement, shooting, and assault. And in each one of those phases, you can do something. You can react to an action against you by your opponent. Whereas before, you'd get to your opponent's turn, and other than making a few saves, you generally didn't really do anything at all.
That was your bathroom break time, right?
Well, it was, wasn't it? I mean, at a lot of events, I would find a chair, and that's when I would sit down and kind of, anytime my opponent said, "Oh, can you roll a save for that?" I'd roll a save, but that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, I personally think it's a really good thing. I think it's a new dynamic. I think it kind of mixes things up a little bit, and from the games I've played, it can have quite a massive impact on the game.
I think there was overwhelmingly positive feedback from the way that Titanicus rule set's been received in terms of having alternating activations and not really having big dips in terms of interaction. And I think that's probably, I'd like to think that's been the thing that's provided the kind of driver for introducing reactions, because you are way more engaged now. You're not, there's less sort of tuning out and just being like, well, I'll go for a piss and I'll roll some saves and I'll come back in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think this is the kind of perfect in between, because I know a lot of people were like, people kind of wanted the 80 style of play for the new Heresy, but like anyone who's ever had anything to do with these game systems has said, from a games designer point of view, is it just doesn't work because there's too many units, there's too many models. If you're having alternative activation, like it works for small games. What's the game? The Second World War game.
Bolt action.
Bolt action. It works perfect for that. But as soon as you start getting large games of bolt action, it just becomes confusing, is my experience. So I feel like reactions is the kind of the perfect thing. But essentially, you get to do a reaction every phase. Some special rules give you more than one reaction. So Warlord Traits is the main one that gives you an extra reaction in certain phases. Your unit can't react if it's pinned, it's falling back, it's locked in combat, or it's already made a reaction in that current phase.
Worth bearing in mind there as well, and this is something that came up in a couple of my games that I've played so far, is you can make more than one reaction in each player turn with the same unit, but not in the phase. I think that's where there's a bit of a question there that's come up a couple of times.
Yeah.
So that happens. So that allows one unit to become quite powerful, and that might allow it to fire 3 times over a game turn. The other thing worth saying is that you only get 3 reactions per turn, right?
Yeah.
So you can
no more than 3. You're not allowed to undertake any more than 3. And certain special rules will stop you from performing a reaction. Fearless being one. And I think it's in the artillery rule that artillery isn't allowed to make a reaction. Which has a big impact on things like raid gears. But yeah, essentially it gives you a chance to do something back to your opponent in your opponent's turn. So there's 6 core rules, there's 2 advanced in the books, and then the legions have their advanced. So we'll go through the core rules first. So obviously the first phase is the movement phase. So reactions in the movement phase. During the movement phase, a reactive player may declare a reaction if an enemy unit ends a move within 12 inches and in line of sight of a friendly unit. Once the active player has completely resolved their unit's movement, the reactive player may choose to expend one of their reactions in that phase in order to have a unit they control that is within 12 inches and line of sight of the final position of the moving unit, either advance or withdraw. So the two reactions you have for the movement phase is the advance or withdraw. Do you want us to read through these, or do we just want to talk about?
So just before we talk about those ones, I think it's worth saying that what I found in my game so far is, and I bear in mind that I've not had any deep strikers, or no, I've not deep struck, or nobody has deep struck against me, is that first game turn, it's actually quite hard to get any sort of movement reaction off because you are so far away from one another. The exceptions is the particular map. So the map where it's like an 18-inch bubble in the center, and then the ambush map might be slightly different as well. But the four other maps, because you're 24 inches away from your opponent, it can mean that there might not be a lot to do initially on that first round of movement reactions, but certainly, you know, when it gets to turn 2, you're going to be advancing and withdrawing as well.
Infiltrating
just from my experience, but
infiltrating super powerful now, and what this does give you the ability to react to the harsh alpha strike.
Yeah.
You know, the ability to be able to deploy out of line of sight 9 inches away, and is very, very, very strong. And what this does give you is the ability to kind of counteract, or actually kind of bait your opponent into you a little bit more, I think. So
yeah, I'd agree with that.
You read the rule then. So Paul, are you okay to read the advance?
Yeah. The reactive unit may move a number of inches up to its unmodified initiative characteristic directly towards the enemy unit that triggered this reaction. Excuse me. Moving each model in the unit directly towards the enemy unit by the shortest available path. In a unit with mixed initiative characteristics, use the highest unmodified characteristic. Vehicles may pivot once up to 90 degrees and then move up to 6 inches directly forwards.
Yeah, so that is really strong as well. And I think that slower units like Cataphractory, if you are walking them up the board, that will give you another 4, if not 5 inches, depending if they've got a character with them, up the board and get them up there much quicker. And I think that is why, because initially when I looked at it, I was like, why would you ever want to advance towards the enemy? Well, if you're tough enough to be able to survive an onslaught of shooting or potential charge, you know, you might want to get them up there quicker. And I thought that actually there might be occasions where you use that one. The other one is that if you want to screen or block off a particular unit, an advance might be if you can set it up well, you know, an advance might be really useful. A rhino in front of a particular unit that you want screened off, an advance might be the perfect thing to use that.
The other thing as well is pulling yourself towards objectives, like late game. If your opponent's making a dash for an objective and they end up within 12 inches of you, you can then counteract that by making that, essentially looking to intercept them.
That's what you did in our game, didn't you, Rob? I was running towards to your deployment zone. I think it was the last turn of our game, and you were like, I'll just come and trot up behind you. Which was interesting.
Yeah, so it's powerful. I mean, advanced initially when I looked, I was like, no, I'm never going to advance towards the enemy. That's stupid. But there are a number of tactical situations where it can be really, really handy.
No doubt.
Do you want me to deal with the withdrawal, Lee?
Yeah, please, mate.
So the reacting unit may move a number of inches up to its unmodified initiative characteristics directly away from the enemy unit that triggered this reaction, moving each model in the unit directly away from the unit model. And then it uses the highest unmodified leadership, and vehicles are exactly the same as the one we just read above. It's just 6 inches backwards. This one I think is more obvious to use, but you can use it in other ways as well. You know, screening units, maybe moving away towards an objective to get, you know, a bit of a head start away from them. But also, if there's a charge that you want to try and avoid, moving 4 or 5 inches backwards is, you know, that will make that roll that much harder for your opponent potentially.
I think as we gain more experience with the reactions, you'll start people will start building it into their lists more, of having kind of, you know, so you take a warlord trait that gives you two reactions in the movement phase. You might want to have, you know, you could get to the point where you're trying to get people, you coax them in to charge something, you withdraw that, and then you've got something else that you move into.
Yeah.
So I think it could get really frustrating, especially for certain legions, kind of Alpha Legion and stuff with their is it -2 shenanigans? And then thinking outside of what we've got already, you know, like your militia units. You know, you might have, you know, like Contemptors is the big bad thing at the minute, and that's how you could just screen your 20-man blob of dickheads to stop it getting to whatever it was trying to get. I think as we get used to using these, it will become a lot more tactical. I think at the minute it's almost like a kind of, oh cool, I can do that, rather than actually thinking like, what do I need to achieve here? What am I trying to do?
I think you'll get used to using them against like certain instances in certain legions. Like I can think of a scenario, especially against things like World Eaters, where you can kind of start pulling units. You can do a real bait and switch by offering up a unit to be charged, pulling it back, and then introducing a secondary unit, which essentially then pulls that big unit out of position. And yeah, you might, you know, you'll start getting to a point where you'll be almost trading off. You'll be using your reactions and baits to sort of trade off units. Well, I'll sacrifice this small unit in order to draw your big unit into a corridor of fire where I'm confident that I can kill it next turn and stuff like that. So I think that's where the real kind of nuances will start to come when, as Lee says, when we've got a lot more experience.
I still though, of all the reactions, the movement phase I think are the weakest in comparison to the shooting and the assault phase ones, from what I've seen so far.
Yeah. I think they require the most finesse, but I think that they will be, by the good players, they will be exploitable the most. The others are obvious. This is where you'll see this will separate. It's where the cream will start to rise to the top.
100%. Because in the game that I played, these didn't have a massive impact, and I think that's like you say, because the other ones are easier to use. Yeah, they appear more powerful. Yeah. Rather than, you know, what could potentially be achieved. So that's the movement.
Sorry, I just wanted to say something before we go off the movement. Can we just go back just a second? Meadows, you might have seen this. I think, John, you might have been asking a question or talking to Alex yesterday in one of our WhatsApp groups about flare shields on Spartans. Yeah. Were you guys talking about that? And I think it was Alex that mentioned the withdraw. Somebody said something about, no need for a flare shield nowadays because there's too many options for people getting around the sides. And he mentioned something about the withdraw action. And obviously that pivot motion to face, you know, if you've got
that could be face, quite strong.
Yeah. I thought that was quite an interesting point.
Yeah, so you pivot towards an enemy that you think might potentially be shooting you on the front arc. Yeah. So if you've got a Contemptor next to you with a melter and it's on your side, you can just be like, oh, okay, I'm just going to move my flare shield this way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I'm now out of melter range, and also you've got a flare shield as well. So you can be quite clever about using it.
Yeah. That's good. Cool. Sorry, Lee. Sorry about that.
No, that's a really good point. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about vehicles. Yeah, because I'm just going to be running dreadnoughts, so I don't care. That's massive, isn't it? That cheeky. You know, that outflank before that would have caught your side armor. Now you've got the potential to you know, minimize potentially the damage. Cool. So reactions in the shooting phase. During the shooting phase, the reactive player may react when any enemy unit makes a shooting attack targeting a unit they control. Once the active player has resolved all 2 hit and 2 wound rolls, and armor saves are made, but before any damage mitigation rolls are made or casualties removed, the reactive player may choose to expend one of their reactions for that phase to have the unit targeted by the shooting attack, either return fire or evade.
Now, I've got a question about this. So, and this has come up quite a lot about when pinning takes place, because from my understanding, pinning takes place after
casualties are removed.
After casualties are removed.
So you can still react before you become pinned.
Got it. Okay. So actually pinning will not affect you until the reaction is actually just over. Okay, cool. Right. Nice and easy.
Yeah. Pinning is obviously affected by how many casualties are removed in terms of whether a pinning test is required. So you are pinned after casualties are removed.
Got it. That actually really makes it. That's the clearest I've heard the whole argument over the past 2 weeks, I think. So that's really, really useful.
I think this, just what I read there, is a prime example of them using fucking way too many words.
Yeah, absolutely.
Say something that's actually quite simple.
Yeah.
And then trying to be super clear. Just
I've made it really muddy.
Yeah.
100%.
So return fire and evade are the two options. Paul, do you want to read the return fire from the base?
Yeah, of course. The reacting unit may make a shooting targeting the unit that triggered this reaction, and following all the usual rules for shooting attacks. A unit that makes a shooting attack as part of a return fire reaction may not make any attacks indirectly without line of sight, including barreled weapons or other weapons or special rules that otherwise ignore line of sight. And vehicles may only fire defensive weapons. Template weapons may only be used as part of a return fire reaction if the target unit is within 8 inches and must use the wall of death rule instead of firing normally. Units making a shooting attack as part of this reaction are considered to be stationary and may fire weapons of any type as though they have not moved.
And that reaction to me is why infantry is now king, I think, because they are unhampered by any barrage, any defensive weapons, none of that. Basically, if you choose to fire an opponent's unit, expect them to fire back at you and your unit to be potentially wiped out if you aren't clever about the way in which you go about shooting. And I think the return fire reaction, you've got to consider very carefully what it is you are firing at, what the range is of your opponent's weapons, because what you don't want is for my Volkite Culverin squad to be firing at your las cannon squad, because they've got range on each other, and you're just going to be a bit of a tit for tat, and then the unit's just going to be wiped out trying to kill each other. And I think that is the worst thing you can do. You know, your las cannons, if they're 48 inches away, fire at your tactical squad that can't reach you. And I think that is a more savvy way to play. But I just think, for me, this, so far from what I've seen, infantry is king, because the number one reason, I think, is because of the return fire reaction.
Agree totally. This was I mean, again, it's like we kind of said, it's kind of the easiest one, really, isn't it? It's like, you shoot at me, so I'm just going to shoot back at you. But what I found in the game that I played was this had a massive impact on what I chose to shoot at. Because there were certain units that are like, if I shoot that now, like I took a Leviathan, and it was like, if I shoot that unit now and it reacts, there's a good chance I might lose my Leviathan with its 3 wounds left. So actually, I'm not, like, I just chose not to shoot at that unit because I was like, and there's a lot of talk of it being kind of OP and this and that, and I kind of like it. I like the fact that it makes things have more bite. The only thing I don't like is the effect it has on vehicles. And it's just another little nail in the coffin for vehicles for me, really. Because you've got a dreadnought that has wounds and can't be one shot, and it can react with all its weapons. You know, if you shot at a Spartan, you're going to get 5 not 10 last cannon shots back, you'd probably think twice about doing it, depending on what you're shooting at. You know what I mean? So I think that's a shame that they've only allowed defensive weapons for vehicles. But like I say, as we play more games, we'll probably.
I think it goes back to, though, you're perhaps more inclined with, say, Predators to arm it with Volkite, because they can react. So you might see more people taking sponsored weapons that are strength 6 or lower, just by virtue of the fact that they'll be able to get some fire off on those reactions. Although if you're firing a tank, and you're 10, you've got 10 las cannons, it's going to blow up. It's I can see why defensive weapons would be useful and think about it, but I think it's just maybe needed. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure, but they're just, infantry's more powerful. Heavy support squads are going to be king in this edition. You are going to see them in every army because of this.
Absolutely, but also we've got to bear in mind, right? We're at the very, very, very beginning. We're going to have some erratas. We're going to have some FAQs. We're going to have some little changes and nuances. So I wouldn't be too worried now. But I think the biggest thing with return fire is being cautious, not only from the controlling player in terms of what they're firing at, but also from the reacting player as to when you use this. I think there's going to be that tendency, just the first thing you get shot at, well, I'll just shoot.
Yeah.
I think you've got to really think about how you're, and this is going to be part of the real tactical nuance as well, is like think about how you're trying to sort of either bait your opponent into doing things that mean you can react in a way that's beneficial or more beneficial to you, or kind of trying to preempt and thinking, well, he's likely to do this, he's likely to shoot that with this, he's likely to shoot that with this, and then really considering about when you're going to utilize it.
Yeah, massively. Like that came in. I've only played one game, and that came into it because it was obvious the unit that he was going to choose to react fire to me, so I just didn't shoot at that unit.
Yeah.
Fire, and I shot at all his other units. I made sure I did it in an order that it made it look like I might shoot the one unit, my Leviathan, that was going to shoot at that unit. I fired that last because it was obvious to him that I was going to shoot at it.
Right, yeah.
And then I just didn't.
Proper psychological warfare.
Yeah. And then it was like, oh, fuck. And then I shot it into attack squad and removed attack squad that was scoring.
Yeah.
But they couldn't react fire because they couldn't damage him. So, because they just had bolt guns.
Yeah.
So, yeah, massively, I think. Yeah. So, John, do you want to read the evade one, please?
I will. Evade. All models in the reacting unit gain the Shrouded, so essentially a 5-up cover save, special rule against all wounds inflicted as part of the shooting attack that triggered this reaction. If the reacting unit already has a version of Shrouded special rule, then this does not stack or increase that rule, and the reacting player may choose to use any of the Shrouded rules available to them. A vehicle that suffered an immobilized result on the vehicle damage table, any unit that includes one or more models with a movement characteristic of 0, or any unit that is not allowed to move in this turn for any reason, may not make an evade reaction. So I personally think that this is a bit of a boon for vehicles. And the reason being is that you're going to find that obviously you can either take a cover save or you can take a feel no pain, and they're both 5 up. And you're going to find that apothecaries are going to be ubiquitous in these large infantry squads, or in most squads. Like, you're going to see apothecaries in heavy weapons teams, as an example. So I personally feel that this is a bit more of a buff. It's quite a big buff. Well, maybe not quite so much a buff for dreadnoughts, because they've obviously got an invulnerable save. So I think that this is probably more beneficial for vehicles. Like, you've got a 1/3 chance of stopping your Spartan getting one shot. I think this is probably what you're going to utilize in that regard.
Yeah,
my thoughts anyway.
Yeah. But then you can. I think the problem with this is, if it was a 4-up, it might be a different story. But like, the return fire is just so obviously better, and I can only use one of these two, and it's just like, oh, okay, well, this vehicle is going to get blown up. It's, I've got 1 in 3 chance of surviving, or actually I can return fire with my squad that I know I've got lined up. I think that it all comes down. Doesn't seem good to me.
It all comes down to, again, trying to preempt what your opponent's going to do, and making or setting it up in a way that you can almost predict what's going to happen because of ranges, or what the target priorities are, or what you used as bait, or what you're prepared to trade off in this turn.
Yeah.
Like, if you really desperately need to get this Spartan full of despoilers or Terminators down someone's throat,
a 5-up is better than nothing, right? Yeah,
exactly right. Yeah, so I think that's where I think they've both got play. But also as well, like, the fact of the matter is, right, you might have an elite slot, and you might only have, you've got 4 big units of infantry, and you can only take 3 apothecaries. So you've got one that hasn't got an apothecary. So this is essentially giving you a free apothecary.
Yeah. So I have a question: is a cover save a damage mitigation roll, or is it a save?
It's a this
is what we had when I played my game, and it in the rule book it says saving throws and damage mitigation rolls, and it talks about cover saves, and then it talks about damage mitigation rolls, such as feel no pain or shrouded.
Right.
The way
Yeah.
we read it.
So
was
I read it as
actually an
essentially.
armor save.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, it's not an armor save; it's a damage mitigation roll. So because
We
you wouldn't
read it the
necessarily.
other way.
Okay, read it verbatim for me, please.
So, I mean, literally, it says saving throws and damage mitigation rolls. All these forms of protection are represented by saving throws and damage mitigation rolls as follows. And then it talks about armor saves, armor piercing weapon, invulnerable saves, cover saves. Enemy models can often be protected by terrain, also known as being in cover. Where this is the case, the model will be entitled to a cover save. Even if a wound, penetrating hit, or glancing hit ignores all armor saves, a cover saving throw can still be taken. And then in the next bit, it says damage mitigation rolls. Some models may also have a special rule that grants a damage mitigation rule, such as feel no pain or shrouded. These rolls may be made even if a model has already failed a save of any kind. And then it talks into damage mitigation. So to me, I read that a cover save is a save, and then you get your damage mitigation.
Yeah, that's right. That's how
Yeah,
I
you
read
do,
it.
yeah.
So shrouded is
Yeah.
no longer defined as a cover save anymore.
No, it's his own. It's his own thing.
So with
right.
that evade, if you were shooting at the way I read it, if you were shooting at say a heavy support weapon squad in cover, and you used evade, you would get your cover save, and then
you would get your shroud. Shrouded is essentially the same, treated as for want of a better term, and the way to liken it is feel no pain. Except you always get it, even if you wouldn't get feel no pain.
So actually, then in that case, then if you've got a vehicle behind cover, and then that gives you the 4 up because it's 25% obscured, and then you've got
a 5 up now. Because cover saves have got worse, so it would be a 5 up now.
Oh, is it now?
Yeah.
Right. So 5 up, 5 up. So 5 up is good as a 4 up, then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Chances are the same.
Statistically, yes.
Yeah.
But I actually found that made them really survivable.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah.
Really annoying.
I mean, the legions that are going to do well, or the armies that are going to do well, I think are those that give two reactions in the shooting phase, and I think that for me, shooting, I think that's the one where you want the additional reactions. I think that the charge ones are quite good, but twice overwatching is great. But yeah, I think that this is really where you're going to want your second reaction.
I mean, again, I think it depends what you want your army to do. I think
that I have no doubt. I think just generically, I think that the shooting phase continues to be the strongest of phases in comparison in comparison to all the others. That's interesting, though. I hadn't realised about shrouded. I just always assumed it was a cover, but that's changed.
No, so it's an extra. It's basically an extra
feel no pain. Feel no pain for vehicles, back there.
Yeah. I think that's one of them that you read it and you're like, oh, that's not that great. And then actually when you see it in practice, it can be quite effective.
That is, definitely. Yeah.
Cool. Anything else to say on those 2 core reactions?
Not for me.
Nope.
No. But it does make the one thing I would say is that it makes.
So yes is the answer then, Rob.
Yeah, sorry. It makes dreadnoughts even more unkillable, right? Because you've got your 5 up in bun and then a 5 up shrouded potentially.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. Twats, crack on.
Next.
You had to ruin it, didn't you?
Sorry.
So reactions in assault phase. During the assault phase, the reactive player may react when any enemy unit declares a charge targeting a unit they control. Once the active player has resolved all charge rolls, whether successful or not, but before any models are moved as part of either a charge move or surge move, the reactive player may choose to expend one of their reactions for that phase to have the unit targeted by the charge either overwatch or hold the line. So again, lots of fucking words that doesn't really need to be. So, Rob, do you want to read the Overwatch one for me?
Yeah, sure. The reacting unit may make a shooting attack targeting the unit that triggered this reaction and following all the usual rules for shooting attacks. A unit that makes a shooting attack as part of an Overwatch reaction may not make any attacks indirectly without line of sight. including barrage weapons or other types of special rules that otherwise ignore line of sight, and vehicles may only fire defensive weapons. Template weapons used as part of an Overwatch reaction use the Wall of Death rule instead of firing normally. The unit targeted by the Overwatch attack may not take cover saves against wounds inflicted as part of an Overwatch reaction. Units making a shooting attack as part of the reaction are considered to be stationary and may fire weapons of any type as though they had not moved.
Yes. So Overwatch, but full ballistic skill, basically.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Super strong.
And again, I found that this is one of them that you kind of, if you've got multiple attacks coming in, you need to use it. You need to be sensible when you use it for maximum impact. But I basically decimated one of their squads with this because it's full ballistic skill.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But this, I think the big thing here is that depending on what unit you're using, you could potentially get 3 lots of shooting off in any game turn, right? So you've got your turn shooting, then you've got the return fire, and then you've got Overwatch as well. And in the last game that I played, the Iliastus assault cannons were a really good example of because they had to get quite close and personal, and also they need to be shut down. And the obvious way to do that is through charging them. I shot 120, there were 120 shots in just that one turn because I return fired and I overwatched and I shot in my preceding turn as well. So I think that it's nuts the amount of fire on particular. Some units are going to be able to really leverage the reactions in an amazing way.
Agreed. And then hold the line. Paul, do you want to read hold the line, please?
The reacting unit must make a morale check. If the check is successful and the enemy unit's charge was also successful, then that charge counts as disordered. If the morale check is successful, but the enemy unit's charge was a failure, then any other charges resolved against that unit by other enemy units in the same charge subphase must be counted as disordered.
That's interesting.
This is bonkers powerful.
Yeah.
I think this is the sleeper. I had a scenario the other day where I was taking my Templar Brethren fists out and I was charged a relatively decent sized tactical squad thinking I'm getting 6 attacks on the charge. I'm going to murder him. It's absolutely wonderful. And Skyedge went bush, passes morale check, and all of a sudden I'm disordered. So I've lost my charge bonus. I've lost my 2 attacks for rage from disembarking from the vehicle. I've lost my +1 strength for my weapons because I've lost my furious charge. And all of a sudden, like, the potency is like not even half. It's a third of what it kind of. It's gone from a sure thing to I might actually get stuck in combat here.
Yeah.
It's I think this is really, again, situationally really, really good.
Does this affect Furious Charge, does it though?
Well, I think Furious Charge, it would affect Furious Charge because it's a charge bonus.
Right, interesting. Interesting.
Okay. I may well have read it wrong, but I
can see why you would read it that way though.
I think it does.
Yeah.
I mean,
because you don't get any bonuses to charge. It removes charging bonuses.
This essentially has the power to switch off certain Legion rules.
Yes. Yep. World Eater's been most.
I was just about to say that's going to shut that down.
So huge, yeah. And again, I feel like this will come back into, if you're only making 1 charge that turn, you're either going to get shot, or they're going to do this to you and switch off all your special rules. So again, it comes back into if I'm running a more aggressive army, I need to be thinking about how I can deliver more than 1 unit at a time. I need at least 2 or 3 squads a turn to charge.
You need units running in parallel, I think.
Absolutely.
Army. Yeah.
On the flip side, exactly, because you'll know that you'll have your apex threat, right? You'll have your unit of Red Butchers with anger on, or you'll have your massive unit of whatever they are,
Librarians or whatever.
Yeah, exactly right. But then you know that if you've got 3 or 4 charges that you're hopefully activating in one phase, you know that you've got, let's say if you've got 4 units you want to charge in, right? And you know that one is the apex. It's your Sigismund and Templar Brethren, or it's your Angor and Red Butchers. You know that your other 3 are going to be able to react with absolute impunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where I think the real play comes in.
What's interesting about this, though, so I don't know if you guys have played in the night time at all, but Night Fight does make this harder to get off, right? Because everything's obviously -1 leadership. Which is interesting as well. So yeah, it's harder to get off, I think, if you are fighting the first 2 turns or whatever.
And this is where things like fear become even more powerful as well. It's one thing I noticed with my game. You can start chipping away at people's leaderships. It starts making things a lot harder for them. But yeah, 2 really good reactions.
It's where librarians of telepathy really come into their own.
Do you want to explain that one? Because I haven't looked at librarians.
So in a quick overview of the list I took the other day, I took 2 big units of Templar Brethren, and the one that had my Praetor in also had a librarian with telepathy. Now what telepathy does is there's the non-shooting power is take a leadership test, and if the leadership test is passed, you select an enemy unit within 24 inches line of sight and you remove its ability to react. But you do it at the start of any, so this is where the change of the psychic phase has got, because obviously the psychic phase is done, there is no psychic phase anymore. That happens at the start of any of your phases,
right? Okay.
So for instance, what I was able to do is at the start of the movement phase was move my delivery vehicle up, get my guys out, stand an inch away, because obviously disembarking now is so much better. Disembarking from vehicles, you make your full move.
Yeah.
So, and stand an inch away, start of the shooting phase. He'd already withdrawn another unit. So the unit was stood an inch away, and then he had a big unit of Linnaean Terminators with Dynat in there and his Praetor, and my Librarian was able to shut down their reaction. Woo! So we were able to go in, charging out of the vehicle with all the charge bonuses. The Praetor, it was wonderful. And he was, 100 points? Worth every single point just for the ability to do that.
That's interesting. Do you have to use the actual librarian's leadership, or is it the highest units?
No, it's the librarian's leadership.
So leadership 9 for the console.
So it's still pretty predictable.
Yeah.
Failing leadership test is obviously super fucking bad news now, librarians, because they perils regardless. So if you don't have to roll doubles anymore, it's just if they fail, they perils.
Got it.
Yeah. But then that's not as brutal as it used to be, is it? It's you get invulnerable saves against it's D3 wounds, isn't it?
Yeah, it's D3 wounds. So you get invulnerable saves, and that's it, I think.
Interesting. But this is where, so Zardu, I was just checking. So Zardu has a psychic power where he can switch off reaction powers. He takes an automatic perils of the war, but he can just switch off a unit's reaction.
It's really tough.
There's going to be lots of, and this is what we kind of mean when we keep saying, because I keep looking at the fucking rule books, because there's so many things that people are like, oh my god, this is batshit, but there's so many things that we haven't even discovered yet.
Yeah,
because you haven't played it or you haven't used that character.
Thousands of changes, and some of those are small, but then thousands of interactions that we don't know about yet.
Yeah, the fact as well, we just go back to the shooting reactions. We say that heavy weapons team is going to be really powerful.
Yeah.
But if you've got a librarian that's halfway across the board that just nips out of a line, well, you're not reacting anymore. So then you can target everything against that impunity. But I'm going to murder you this turn.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, librarians. Interesting.
Cool.
So one up if you haven't already is my
hot take.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the 6 core reactions. And then in the book, you get 2 advanced reactions, which is Death or Glory and Interceptor. Rob, do you want to read the Death or Glory one first?
Yeah, I've not done this one yet, so
nor has anybody.
Yeah, I'll just go straight to it. So this advanced reaction may be made whenever the active player declares a ram attack after any hits from a successful ram have been resolved and the target unit has passed its morale check, this reaction must be resolved. The reactive player may nominate any one model in the unit that was rammed. That model may make a single attack with either a melee or ranged weapon. That's quite cool. Whatever form the attack takes, it automatically hits, and any damage is resolved against the target vehicle's front armor. If the attack destroys the vehicle or inflicts a crew stunned, immobilized, or exposed results, then the attacking model remains in play. Otherwise, it is immediately removed as a casualty with no saves or damage mitigation rolls. Oh, so but it is. Oh no. Okay, it's just gone, isn't it then? Of any kind. Vehicles may not be nominated to make a death or glory. So if you got a last cannon dude and it's about to be rammed, it's like one guy in front is like, see if you can blow it up.
That'll never happen though, because he'll have killed that 2 turns ago. that is no fucking way that
it's interesting. It's against front armor. I think is the thing to kind of like note there as well. There will only be, I mean, we never saw ramming really in the last edition too much, did we? But it will be a cool thing if you do manage to.
I mean, they've essentially just called this a reaction because this was the rule, wasn't it? You could choose to do.
I don't remember it being a ranged weapon though. I just remember it being a close combat weapon, like a grenade or something.
Well, melter bombs were more easily available, weren't they?
Yeah.
Like a melter bomb, didn't they?
You are never, ever going to see this.
No. No. And then the next one is Interceptor.
You are going to see this.
It's all the time, right? All the time.
This advanced reaction may be made whenever an enemy unit enters play from reserve within line of sight of a friendly unit and within the maximum range of at least one weapon in that unit. The reacting unit may make a shooting attack targeting a unit deployed onto the battlefield in this phase and following all the usual rules for shooting attacks. Vehicles may only fire defensive weapons because we hate vehicles, unless another rule specifically states otherwise. Shooting attacks made as part of the Interceptor reaction do not cause morale checks, regardless of the number of casualties inflicted. Unless otherwise specified by another rule, making this reaction expends a point from the reactive player's reaction allotment for the phase in which the reaction is made. Okay, I didn't realize that at the end. So essentially, augury scanners.
Yeah, so you can just intercept, right? Like if something drops down in front of you, it comes from for reserves, you could use this reaction and intercept. The thing about augury scanners is that so I'll read what augury scanner says because they've become exceptionally powerful. So when enemy unit is deployed to the battlefield from reserves, a unit that includes at least one model with an augury scanner may make the Interceptor advanced reaction without expending a point of the reactive player's reaction allotment. This does not allow the unit to make more than one reaction per phase. So I can't repeatedly do it, right? You know, in that.
But if you have 3 heavy weapons teams, Rob.
Yeah, exactly. But does allow the controlling player to exceed the normal 3 reactions limit in a given phase. So basically, augury scanners unlocks 3 Interceptor reactions as many times as you've got augury scanners.
Augury scanners, yeah. Okay.
So take them, buy them, take them. They're a bargain. All they do.
So are Vexillers, by the way, as an FYI.
Yes. So all they had to do with this is just keep it as it expends a point, and all of a sudden you have to think about your augury scanner and what you're going to be shooting at.
Yeah.
Whereas currently, there's no thought process, is there? Like, why would you not do it? Like, unless whatever the squad's equipped with can't damage that thing, you're just going to do it because why would you?
I felt that they've never been able to get augury scanners right. I mean, do you remember the big fact that we got? And then augury scanners became, instead of being 18 inches, it became basically the weapons range of anything deep striking. And it was just nuts. Like they were just ridiculous. Like, why can they not get augury scanners right? It's just, they are just too good for the points that you pay. It needs to be like a 50-point upgrade. Then that will make people think about whether
I mean,
or I tell you what, my thinking as well is, so just a quick question. Augury scanners, that essentially just the unit comes equipped with an augury scanner.
That's correct, yeah.
What would be really nice is you could give it to sergeants of units as a war gear option. So then you've got things like precision strikes, precision shots, sniper, being able to pick these guys off. I think that would be.
Well,
really,
let me just check.
really
I will
nice
just check that.
interaction.
Hold that thought. I will just double check whether it's the sergeant takes it or the unit takes a. So let's have a look at the heavy sports squad, because that's the squad that
that's where they're going to go.
Everybody will be taking, including myself.
It's worth saying this is very powerful, and there was a lot of talk about how flyers, especially Xiphons, were going to be kind of quite ubiquitous, mainly because they're so cheap points wise. I think this almost renders them, it doesn't necessarily render them redundant, because obviously you've still got the point about intercepting a flyer. But for instance, if you're facing up against an Iron Warriors player, as an example, you are in all sorts of trouble.
So it's one legionary may take an augury scanner, and I think that actually you because of precision shots and because of the way that it's quite prevalent now, you need to model your.
I think so. I think we need to start pushing that as a kind of community prerogative. Like, you need to nominate who the guy is with the augury scanner and make it obvious. Just like, if he's got a backpack with a wire sticking out of it or something, he needs to be like, this is the guy that has the augury scanner, because because vigilators are going to want to be popping.
And if you haven't done that, get the fuck out of here. Like, you don't get to use your augury scanner.
Powerful stuff. Basically, Blood Angels need to fear this. Any deep striking army, orbital assault needs to fear this. And
it just seems that they haven't. I don't know. Like, augury scanners, just for 10 points. You 18 inches, you're not allowed to infiltrate. Gets rid of the effects of night fighting, I think. And then this, as much as you like, it's just nuts, isn't it?
You can't. What is going on here?
You can't basically deep strike a Leviathan now, and you can't deep strike one thing. I think because it will just get blown off the board. Even if you don't have augury scanners, you can still use the interceptor reaction, for free or one unit.
Here's a question for you though: if you're dropping in a drop pod, though, you'll intercept the drop pod, not the unit inside.
So whenever an enemy unit enters play from reserve within line of sight.
Yeah, exactly. So what you'll do is you will be. So if you've got a Leviathan in a pod, you'll be shooting the pod, and then the Leviathan will take a strength 8 AP dash hit when the pod eventually explodes.
What if my heavy sport last cannon team blows up the pod? And then what's left, the Leviathan's left over, and I've still got multiple augury scanners. Can I then fire at the? This is,
I think, this is where a weird rules interaction, because technically it's a different unit,
right?
I think personally, this is where it gets a little bit. It's more. I feel like it's more there for shooting down planes or transports or units that are outflanking than deep striking necessarily. I kind of think. I think the problem is if you're playing, let's put this into perspective. If you're playing a drop assault army and you've got 5 pods coming down, what's the point? Like, why even play the game?
Yeah.
What's a pod? 11 all round?
It's 12 all round.
12 all round. Okay, yeah, that's better, I guess. But still, I think for me, it would be you would intercept the pod. Well, also as well, this is the thing, you see, because the unit comes in, you have to declare all your reactions in one go. So you'd all be intercepting the pod, every unit. You couldn't go, this one's going to react and shoot the pod. I don't think anyway. I think in terms of, that's my thought process behind it. I would be pissed off if I dropped a Leviathan in the pod down and you blew up the pod and then the other units then intercepted the Leviathan.
The only thing that makes me think, so the reacting unit may make a shooting attack targeting a unit deployed onto the battlefield in this phase.
Maybe you're right then. I think it needs a bit of clarification.
That definitely needs to be clarified, I think, because interceptor plus augury scanners just seems too good now to ever buy. Like, deep striking assault squads for Blood Angels
just dead.
They're gone. It's nuts. Goodbye, Blood Angels, as a army.
Goodbye, my lover.
Oh, please stop.
Right. Next up.
So that's the 2 advanced reactions that come in the main rule book. So that is all the advanced reactions, I believe, in the main rule book.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, every legion has their own advanced reaction. So we're not going to go through all of them because we'll be here forever. But we've pretty much picked the legions we play. So up first is the Imperial Fist.
This is amazing. Like, I've used this in every game I've played, and it is fucking awesome. So this advanced reaction can be made once per battle during, and that's the thing to say about these. Actually, they're usually once per battle, right? They're not once per once per turn or whatever.
Yeah.
So during the opposing player's movement phase, when an enemy unit moves within 10 inches and within line of sight of any model with the Legiones Assassins Imperial Fist special rule in a unit under the reactive player's control, with that unit making a reaction, the reactive player may immediately declare a charge for the reacting unit against the enemy unit which triggered this reaction, as if it were the controlling player's assault phase, with a charge distance in inches equal to d6 plus the lowest unmodified initiative characteristic of any model in the reacting unit and any charge modifiers the unit has. If the charge is successful, the units are locked in combat and fighting in the assault phase as normal, with the charging unit benefiting from any charge bonuses, Hammer of Wrath, etc. If the charge fails, no surge move is made. So I've used this twice now, and each time it was amazing. So the against Paul, he moved the Spartan within 10 inches of that unit, and then I think his intention then was to move a unit of Linneans out of it, but because it says when an enemy unit moves within 10, I was then able to react against that Spartan and then close down the fact that his Linneans were going to come out of it. And I think that because of that, it is so powerful, I think. But then the assaults take place in the assault phase. So it keeps that unit nice and safe, locked in combat, can't target it, and it can potentially shut down any potential assaults from vehicles if you get nice and close.
But you're not making attacks.
You only make the attacks in the assault phase.
The assault phase, as if you've charged.
As if you've charged. The other thing as well is that the player who then because I had the exact same thing in a game today. So I've played a couple of games of my Iron Warriors and a game with my fists, and my fists is Templar Brethren, so it's all combat related.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable for just bullying units.
Yeah.
Like catching people in a pincer because they're like, well, you've moved into range, I'm going to charge you, or you've moved up to them, so they'll evade.
Yeah,
and then it's just so good.
It's really good, and I think the fact that it's out of sequence as well, completely.
Well, because the biggest thing for that is that the player who's now being charged can't then react to your charge because
that's right.
Because you're the reacting player.
In a reaction. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's just it's. So, I can see why they made it once per battle, right? Because it is really, really good.
Yeah. Cool. Fucking Imperial Fist. Iron Warriors. Go on, John.
This looks like it's in fucking like a fairground hall of mirrors glass. It's really weird.
The best I could do. It's not that fucking bad. Jesus Christ.
This advanced reaction may be made once per battle during the opposing player's shooting phase when an enemy unit declares a shooting attack targeting a friendly unit under the reactive player's control, composed entirely of models with Legiones Assassins Iron Warrior special rule. Once the active player is resolved, all to hit and to wound rolls and arm saves are made, but before any damage mitigation rolls are made or casualties removed, the reacting player may make a shooting attack targeting the unit that triggered this reaction with all weapons. However, makes twice.
What the fuck?
Twice their normal number of attacks, but gaining the Gets Hot special rule.
Okay.
The heroes of this weapon that also possess the Gets Hot rule trigger the special reaction roll on a 1 or a 2 during the shooting phase instead of a 1. A unit that makes a shooting attack as part of a bit of fury reaction may not make any attacks indirectly, including weapons with barrage, or other special weapon or special rules that otherwise ignore line of sight, and vehicles may only fire defensive weapons. 10-play weapons used as part of a bit of fury reaction use the Wall of Death rule instead of firing normally. Now, gentlemen, I'd like to open my fridge, go to my cheese drawer. So there is a warlord trait that you can give that gives a unit an additional shooting attack. So the question is,
put it on Iron Havocs.
When is that applied? Are your Iron Havocs making 40 return shots with their las cannons?
That's ridiculous. That's crazy. Yeah.
Or are they making 30 return shots with their las cannons?
What does the Warlord trait say? Does it say just
it says it adds an additional, they make an additional shot with each weapon. So are your auto cannons reacting with 60 attacks or just 50 attacks?
I would say no.
I would say no too,
Yeah.
because it just feels a bit wrong. However, the problem is the fact there is enough ambiguity in there that desperately needs, because I wouldn't play it like that, but there will be people out there who will play it like that.
To be honest, 30 or 40 las cannon shots, it doesn't matter whether it's 30 or 40 because the unit's just going to be wiped out anyway. I mean, it's a moot point. I think, whether it's 30 or 40.
Yeah. It's this is or siege tyrants. Are your siege tyrants going to be shooting back with potentially 60 shots?
Yeah, that's interesting. That definitely needs to be clarified.
It does say in here. If a warlord, oh god, I'm losing my voice. If a warlord and/or unit under the effect of this trait makes the bitter fury reaction, then a single additional dice is added to the number of attacks made by each one after the effects of bitter fury have been applied. In addition, whenever a warlord with this trait in any unit is joined as target, blah blah blah.
There you go. That's good. Yeah. What I've not done is I've deliberately not read the bit that instantly contradicts the question that I asked.
That's
but yeah, no, it's that's mad powerful, because you will have Iron Havocs reacting with 30 las cannon shots. You will have siege tyrants reacting with 50 missiles.
I mean, you're gonna destroy whatever you're shooting at, but you're probably gonna lose your unit as well.
You're going to exactly right. Yeah. The fact of the matter is, right, you're going to lose that unit anyway.
Yeah.
Because anyone with half a brain isn't going to sacrifice. Well, so you're probably not going to use Bitter Fury because it's a once per battle. You're not going to use Bitter Fury unless you are guaranteed to fuck something up.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you as well. This is one thing that so let's, for argument's sake, say, talons of dreadnoughts, right? You have to buy them as a talon, but they're then treated individually.
Yes.
At what point, when you're targeting them from shooting attacks?
Yeah.
How do wounds carry through the squadron?
So I'm not convinced that they would. They're not a squadron, and I don't think that they would follow the squadron rules. And I don't think so either. But it's only just because I've not actually read it. It's only something that kind of occurred to me a short while ago. Yeah, I think that you have to,
when we come onto the tactics section about how we do.
Yeah. One of us can read it between them, but very interesting, because that is definitely something you would want to leverage Bitter Fury and
if you've got 30 las cannon shots coming back.
Yeah,
especially with the Iron Havocs hitting on twos.
As if Iron Warriors weren't powerful enough. I say that as an Imperial Fist player, though. So. Right, should we go to the next one, Lee?
Yeah.
I'll look up the talons and squadron.
I've got it here, mate. I've got it. We can talk about it when we talk about Contemptors. Word bearers, glorious martyrdom. So when you shoot your 50 las cannon shots at me, this is what I pull out.
only 30 las cannon shots.
Oh, 30, sorry.
It's a 50 auto cannon shots.
This advanced reaction may be made once per battle during the opposing player's shooting phase, when an enemy unit declares a shooting attack targeting a friendly unit under the reactive player's control. The Legion as a starter's word bearer special rule. Once this reaction has been declared, a single model in the reacting unit with the Legion as a starter's word bearer special rule is selected by the reacting unit's controlling player. That model is removed as a casualty immediately without any to hit or to wound rolls being made by the attacking unit, and with no armor saves or damage mitigation rolls made by the reactive player. This ends the shooting attack, with no further rolls or tests being made. If any of the weapons in the attacking unit would normally inflict further hits after causing an unsafe wound, such as weapons with a deflagrate special rule, or other effects due to inflicting hits or unsafe wounds, such as weapons with a blind or concussive special rule, then these additional hits or effects are ignored and have no effect. Any attacks made with weapons with the ordnance or destroyer types, or the blast or template special rules, ignore the effect of this reaction and are resolved as normal. So basically, you get shot by anything that isn't
Ordnance or destroy.
Ordnance, destroyer, blast, or template, then you just remove one guy, and that's it. The shooting attack's done.
That's amazing.
This is really good.
Really good. Yeah.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, and you can just select who it is. You just go this this mook here. I'm taking him.
Get here. It's going to take it for the team. So again, I like this because this is the thing, though, isn't it? Like, you have that unit that's throwing out horrendous weight of fire. I think there's going to be a lot of get you moments when we start learning this game.
Yeah.
You know, I think you need to kind of sit down before a game and tell each other what your fancy little rules are.
Yeah.
But this is exactly the counter to that, isn't it? It's like, oh, you're going to shoot me with all this bollocks. Well,
yeah, but although you can't react in reaction, like that wouldn't be because against a bit of fury, it's just in their normal phase, right?
Yeah.
You can't.
You can't react to your turn.
Yeah. So no, you couldn't react to that. No. Yeah. It's against a shooting attack. No. Yeah. You can't react to a reaction, can you?
Yeah.
Because this is in your opponent's turn.
That's amazing. That's such a cool rule. I think it's just
really
cool, and it's really fluffy. Great lore to it.
I just love the idea of like this fucking word bearer saying some prayer in cultus and then just standing up and being like, "Witness me," and then everyone else being like, "Cheers, Belland." Right, let's move on. But yeah, I like that. That's good. It's a good one.
Yeah, it's great. It's cool.
Okay, and then Alpha Legion.
Okay, cool. I didn't use this in my game against Rob, but I shall be using it on Thursday, Rob, when we play.
Yeah.
Okay, Smoke and Mirrors. This advanced reaction may be made once per battle during the shooting phase when any enemy player declares a shooting attack against a friendly unit with under the reactive player's control, composed entirely of models with the Alpha Legion special rule. Excuse me. Before resolving the shooting attack, the unit targeted by the shooting attack may be redeployed. To redeploy the unit, the controlling player selects one model from the unit making this reaction and places it anywhere within 12 inches of its original position, and then scatters the model D6 inches. If the scatter roll would place the model within impassable terrain, a building or fortification within 1 inch of an enemy unit or off the edge of the battlefield, then the model is moved to the shortest distance possible to place it free of all obstacles and within the boundaries of the battlefield. Once this model is placed, all other models from the reactor unit may be placed anywhere within 6 inches of that model and at least 1 inch from any enemy model and in unit coherency. Any models that cannot be placed must be removed as casualties. Once the redeployment is complete, the active player may resolve the shooting attack as normal. If the shooting attack is no longer valid once this redeployment is complete, due to the enemy unit no longer having line of sight to the target unit, for example, then the active player may not select a different target, and no attacks are made or dice rolled for that unit.
Yeah, so I did play against Graham, who did this to me. So I tried to fire my Spartan at a Contemptor, and or maybe it was like a Dreadnought at another his Contemptor, and he was like, He picked it up, moved it 12 behind a piece of cover, and then it scattered like a couple of inches, and it was like, right, great, I can't see that now, brilliant. So it's really strong, really powerful.
Really good.
I also
really
had
good.
this used against me in a game I played against Alistair with his Alpha Legion last week, and did exactly the same thing. I was trying to bully some guys off of an objective, ran up to him, went to shoot him, and he was like, I was going to chip off to this other objective over here.
Not this one, this one.
Yeah. And again,
Fantastic.
out of range, like I was just at the edge of range with my Leviathan's grab flux, and it just went, now you're out of range. And also, I'm now claiming this objective. See you later.
Yeah, so if it isn't enough,
really nice.
insulting enough that they're always, your
2 inches
weapons
away.
are 2 inches worse, they also can, move 12 inches away, but for Alpha Legion, that's 14 inches away, right? So, real pain.
Yeah, very fluffy. Yeah, it's
like
very
it.
Alpha Legion. It's lovely. Yeah, I shall be using it on Thursday. I look forward to it. Yeah.
Awesome.
I like the fact that all the ones we read are actually like quite strong but fluffy as well. They fit Legion, don't they? They
do.
And then the next one we've got, just to have a look, because it's not just Space Marines, was the Mechanical Advanced Reaction they showed a little while back. So this advanced reaction may be made once per battle during the shooting phase when any enemy unit declares a shooting attack targeting a unit that includes a model of the independent character special rule under the reactive player's control, which is part of the Mechanicum detachment. The reacting unit and any friendly Mechanicum units eligible to make a reaction within 12 inches may make a shooting attack targeting the unit that triggered this reaction and following all the usual rules for shooting attacks. Any unit that makes a shooting attack as part of this reaction counts as having made a reaction in this phase. A unit that makes a shooting attack as part of a scornful fire reaction may not make any attacks indirectly without line of sight, including weapons with a barrage special rule or other weapons, or special rules that otherwise ignore line of sight. And vehicles may only fire defensive weapons. Template weapons may only be used as part of a scornful fire reaction if the target unit is within 8 inches and must use the wall of death rule instead of firing normally.
Hang on. The reacting unit and any friendly Mechanicum units eligible to make a reaction within 12 inches may make a shooting attack targeting the unit that triggered this reaction and following all the usual rules of shooting attacks.
Yes.
Does that give it? So hang on. If I've got an independent character in a unit and then I've got other units sitting around it, all those units can then fire back at that unit. Is that right?
Well, yes, it is.
So
also,
you want your independent character basically surrounded by stuff, don't you? In that case, at all times to be able to use.
Well, you're going to anyway because, well, in the past, obviously, you needed robots to be in range for Cortex control range, so you're going to be near your characters anyway. But also the thing that is slightly baffling about this is there's no downside.
No.
There's no downside. There's not like the bit of Fury one where I get to shoot back, but it gets hot.
Yeah.
Or the Word Bearers one where you
say Mechanicum. This is just
one guy.
It's just 1.0 all over again, I think.
Absolutely.
This is really strong, really strong.
It's tasty.
Depending on what is near within 12 inches.
Potentially nuts, isn't it? I guess the only thing I'd say is make sure you have lots of terrain on your table.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but it also is it's a bit of a funny one because, like, again, it's going to come down to target priorities and just thinking, right, because you're going to want to try and bait out triggering this reaction because you can only fire back against the units triggered the reaction. So, but it might be the fact if you've got 2 or 3 really good units to be firing at this independent character containing unit, then you're going to be trading, aren't you? You're just going to be thinking, well, I'll sacrifice this unit in order that I get 2 more shots of my 20 Iron Havocs with the las cannons.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, the problem, I think the negative is that any unit that makes a shooting attack as part of this reaction counts as having made a reaction in this phase. I suspect it should be that it counts as having. It's not that bad.
It used to be when if you look at the old Cyber Thirds, you used to be able to make your Thanatos shoot twice, but then it couldn't then shoot the next phase.
Yes,
so it could shoot twice. So that's where I feel like it's maybe a bit of balance could possibly have come in. Like it can react, it can return fire now, but it then cannot then shoot in the next phase.
It gives you a 24-inch bubble, doesn't it? I mean, that's
wonderful. It's really good. Really strong.
Yeah, it's so good.
Really strong.
But it gives a 12-inch bubble, if I'm reading this right, from the reacting unit.
Reacting unit, So if your unit is massive, so like a 20-man squad of thralls, then from there, so you could have a whole gun line basically.
Pretty much cover the whole of your table.
Yeah, that's nice.
Potentially,
that's crazy.
Yeah, can you imagine just having basically your independent character in the center of the board, then your Mechanicum thralls 2 inches apart, all the connected in a conga line all the way across your board, and then all your other units within coherency of those. That would then allow you to have an entire army basically return fire just using this reaction.
Yeah, I feel like it's unlikely.
It looks strong on paper, but we don't know what.
I mean, it does look filth, but
Cool. Cool. Right.
Interesting.
Mechanicum shooting might be terrible. We never know.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they've got a history of being shit, haven't they?
No one ever takes Praevians with 2 Darkfire Castellax attached.
Fuck, that's me. I'm gonna have to buy this book just so I can use my sodding Praevian. Cool. That's the end of the reactions. Is anything anyone else wants to say about them?
I think we're coming to our thoughts about it. I think that points have been raised about each one. I think that for me, it just makes the game that much more tactical, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Agree.
100%.
You're not just sitting down waiting for your opponent to do stuff. There's some back and forth.
It's made both my games go quicker. They felt quicker.
Yeah. That definitely is. My games have been long, but have felt quick, and I think that's part of the battle.
Yeah.
Considering there's been so much flicking between books and kind of checking things, I'm pretty sure it does this, but I'm going to check.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we'll have a break now, and then when we come back, we will be discussing Contemptor Dreadnoughts and have a chat about our thoughts so far on the game. So cool. See you in a bit. Okay, cool. Welcome back. Now we're going to move into the Heresy Hammer Tactica, talking about the nemesis, the boogeyman, the filth that is the Contemptor Dreadnought. Let's have a look at the rules. So Legion Contemptor Dreadnought Talon, 175 points. Movement 8, weapons.
Is it worth giving a bit more context to that, Lee? Which is, I think people are bricking it about Contemptor Dreadnoughts.
Should we talk about
people are bricking it about Fury of the Ancients. Let's in isolation.
And rightly so. They should.
Yeah.
I feel like it would make more sense once we've been through like its toughness and
to give context to why it's so scary.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Right. Sorry. I know it's
Should we start that again?
No, just carry on.
I don't want to now.
Okay. I'll go through this right. It's fast, right? It's got 8 movement 8. It's got weapon skill and BS5. So it's hitting most things in combat on 3s and being hit back on 5s.
Yeah.
It's then shooting, and it's got a huge array of excellent weapons it's got access to. It is a phenomenal gun platform, and that's how I think they should be looked at. So it's hitting on you on 2s. It's then super tough, like it's toughness 7, so it's being wounded with bolt guns on 6s. If you're iron hands, you can't wound it at all. It's got 6 wounds, 3 attacks, and a 2-up save, and an invulnerable save.
And it can't be instant death.
Yeah. And it's in squadrons.
Yeah. I think the people are comparing it essentially to mini Primarchs, which I think is probably a good
not a bad comparison.
Yeah, a good comparison. Yeah, exactly, Paul.
They're gonna be fucking everywhere, aren't they? Jesus Christ.
Right. So should we talk about the weapon options that it can grab? Because the weapon options have significantly increased in terms of potency in comparison to what it was previously. So it comes with a bolt cannon and then the Gravis Power Fist. And I think the Gravis Power Fist, having played a couple of games now, is actually one of the best weapons for destroying other Contemptor Dreadnoughts because of Brutal 3. And what I hadn't realized about Brutal was it's not like Severing Cut where you do 1 wound and then it causes like an additional 3. You know, it is literally one wound causes 3 wounds that have to be saved individually. And I think that because of that, it's a really, really potent weapon. Anybody else got experience with the Power Fist? Or
No, mate. I am quite well. So no, I'm going to come back to this. Crack on.
Lee, do you want to talk us through the weapons?
Yeah. So obviously it comes with Gravis bolt cannon and a Gravis power fist with inbuilt combi bolter, and they can be replaced either or with another Gravis bolt cannon, the Gravis melter cannon, Gravis auto cannon, Gravis plasma cannon, conversion beam, Volkite dual culverin, Keras assault cannon, Gravis last cannon, Gravis power fist with inbuilt combi bolter, and Gravis chain fist. And then obviously if you take fists, the weapons in them can be replaced with heavy flamers, plasma blaster, graviton gun, and melter guns.
So all of them are good options, right? There isn't one there that I think is a bad option. I think that the 5-point Gravis melter cannon is fantastic. Like for 5 points, having melter and the fact there's no armored ceramite now is a really, really good, strong gun platform. Even dual meltering, I think, is a really good one because it's also 2 shots as well.
Seems to be the shooty weapon that people are using as
my point
towards.
Go for it.
So I think that the Dreadnought is the best gun platform in the game currently, because it's very survivable, and also the weapon options that it can take. It's the easiest way of getting multiple Gravis weapons onto the battlefield, right?
Okay.
They're super survivable.
Yep.
They're really, really maneuverable.
And they hit better than vehicles, right?
Well, this is the thing. Going back to the Castaferum Dreadnought, it's got pretty much like it's got the ability to get hold of the majority of stuff that you want. Like a Castaferum Dreadnought, it's still BS5, it's still tough, it's still got a decent save, and you can get 2 Gravis las cannons on for the base points cost of a Contemptor. In fact, and you get change.
Yeah. Like, yeah. So
and I think that is unbelievably potent.
Yeah. I think that it's way more. So if you compare it to, say, the Predator, the Predator is going to come with the same amount of shots. So 4 las cannon shots, is it? Just a normal las cannon Predator. But I think the Legion Contemptor Talon with 2 dual las cannons, not only can they do that, they're way more survivable, but you can give it a
helical targeting
array, and it's going to make it great anti-air as well. And I think people should be fearful because it's so difficult to kill. And what I found in my experience as well is there are a couple of things that are good at killing them. So mass las cannons, but other dreadnoughts are great at killing dreadnoughts, I think. So you're going to get into this sort of like weird, mad dreadnought war where if you don't have other dreadnoughts to counter other people's dreadnoughts, you're going to really struggle, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if you think back to first edition, the things that people kind of not hated, but that were tough is monstrous creatures, because you couldn't just one-shot them.
Nope.
And they've basically made dreadnoughts monstrous creatures.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I used to run 2 Contemptors with my old Dark Angels force in the first edition. I used to have them with both double las cannon. So I used to put out 2 las cannon shots a turn with no sunder, and they'd get one-shotted by something. So the damage output was minimum. You would take a whole point, maybe 2 off a tank if you were lucky. If you were really, really lucky, you'd one-shot a tank, and then you just get one-shotted back. Whereas now you're throwing 4 shots out with sunder, and it's not getting one-shotted. It's toughness 7. It can't be instant killed because you've got the atomantic deflector. So I think they've basically gone from being probably a little bit shit to absolutely mental.
Yeah.
I think that's just the thing that everyone has picked up on. Is
the fact that dreadnoughts themselves and Contemptors are really, really good is not the problem. The problem is the fact they are accessible from a price point, because you can pick them up for 20 quid out of the box, and you can take lots of them.
Yeah.
And if you look at some of the Rights of War, you can take lots of them.
And that's take 12 just in a normal list, right?
Yeah. And that's the biggest problem is the the easy access to lots and lots of dreadnoughts. If they were one per elite slot, right?
Yeah.
Then you'd have to sacrifice a lot to take 3. You've got to sacrifice nothing to take 3 currently. Nothing at all.
Mm-hmm.
What? Even making them 2 per talon might be better. The other thing I would say. So I said earlier that you can get a damage mitigation roll on a dreadnought, but actually you can't, because dreadnoughts are fearless. I think they're fearless, aren't they? I think under the dreadnought rule they are.
Yeah, they're fearless.
So you can't. So this is what fearless says. However, any units containing 1 or more models with the fearless special rule cannot use any reactions to grant a cover save, armor save, invuln save, or a damage mitigation roll of any kind as well. So actually, they can't ever benefit from the shrouded reaction.
Oh, okay, yeah, of course, yeah.
I think the fact that they have made dreadnoughts excellent is good. I think dreadnoughts should be excellent. I think they're very iconic. I think the fact they are super baller is absolutely brilliant. But they, in my opinion, you just need to make them 0-1.
Yeah,
0-1 Contemptor Dreadnought Talon would fix all of the issues.
So can I just say one thing? So my point that I was trying to make before when I was talking about the monstrous creatures, but you wouldn't let me fucking talk, is when I first started playing this, you would just come up against armies of Castellax. Like, everyone would take Castellax because they were fucking 90 points or whatever it was. You know, they weren't 60 quid a model at the time, and you would just come up against, easily you'd come up against an army of 9 Castellax. And people just got fucking bored of playing it, because it's like, well, you're going to win because you've got an army of Castellax and you're just going to mince through me.
Yeah.
And I reckon within about a year, Mechanicum players stopped running fucking huge armies of Castellax just because it was shit to play against. It was fucking boring. It's like, you've got these unkillable things that just fucking, what's the point? You know what I mean? So even without, and then obviously they introduced the rules to Castellax, they increased the price, blah, 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 blah. But before then, people had already stopped running most people had already stopped running hundreds of them because it just wasn't fun to play.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're going to find with dreadnoughts. I think people are going to realize that if they take 5 dreadnoughts to a game, it's not that fun to play against, because you're not really, you're moving 5 models, you're playing with 5 models, and your opponent just potentially can't do a lot against them. It's just not going to be fun to play against.
Yeah, I definitely feel that sentiment. I think that there's kind of 2 things. So basically, bottom line is it just takes a little bit of self-regulation when using the dreadnoughts. I think that what has upset me somewhat is that they are the coolest model produced by GW and Forge World. They always deserve to be tough because of the fluff and the lore surrounding them. And now they are just they are what they should be, you know, fearless bulwarks of, you know, indestructibility.
Yeah.
But from a gameplay point of view, as you say, it's if you take too many, or your opponent is not aware that you are taking many, then your opponent probably isn't going to have a good time. One rule that kind of Ian and Pete were saying on a WhatsApp group we're on was having 1 per 1,000 points plus 1 is a good rule. So if you were doing a 3K game, you'd have no more than 4. But that includes all your dreads. So that includes Contemptors, Leviathans, Doredios.
Yeah,
and also box dreads. So if you're playing a 2K game, 3 and no more is enough. You know, you're at the max level there of what you should be taking. So I'm a bit annoyed because I'm a bit worried that they'll get a nerf back to where they were before. But and I think that there are really good counters to them within all the Legion lists. And Haywire is a nightmare for them as well because it acts the same as it does on vehicles. But do you want to talk about what counters there might be for the dreadnoughts?
The dreadnoughts is the best counter for dreadnoughts. That's kind of part of the problem. You've got this secular issue, is the fact that people are going to have to take dreadnoughts to deal with other people's dreadnoughts.
Yeah. So
that's the problem we're going to be in. You're just going to be in this constant cycle of my worry, again, is exactly the same as yours, Rob, is the fact that they nerf them, whereas I just think the fix is just make Contemptor Talons 0-1.
Yeah.
You take a maximum of 3.
Yeah.
3 is fine. You can deal with 3, even if it's just mass bulk. I mean, if they're Iron Hands ones, we've had that discussion already.
Yeah. The other, in terms of range though, so las cannons are going to be able to take them down like really easily. They'll be able to sort them out. I took the Iliastus squad, literally destroyed Paul's Dreadnought in one turn. It just, it had enough rending and it was wounding them on 5s. That was plenty. I suspect auto cannons will be able to kind of strip off wounds in a pinch. And power fists in close combat are also going to be able to do it as well. And I think the other thing about the brutal with the power fist is that the brutal is great against models which have wounds of 3 or higher, but it's not so good against toughness 4 models, because the wounds don't spill over. They just, the brutal 3 just works on that one model and it's dead. So a Contemptor can kill max like 4 or 5, and it's going to lose 1 or 2 for the hits, and then it's going to lose 1 because you've rolled a 1 on the to wound. But then, so it can only, it's not going to kill a whole Terminator squad, but a Terminator squad with chain fist or power fist is going to, it's going to murk it. It's really, really going to hurt it. So I think that people shouldn't be panicking as much as they are, but I think that if you are not geared up for 2, 3, even 4 Contemptors in a 3K game, I think you are going to struggle.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I 100% agree that I don't want to see them nerfed.
Yeah,
they feel like how they should be. They can't just get shot off the board. They actually put damage out. That's kind of what they should be. But on the flip side, dreadnoughts are like these ancient fucking awesome dudes. There shouldn't be 16 of them on a table. Like you say.
Yeah,
I just think 100% agree. Limit how many you can take, even if we just do that within the community.
I think that's what you'll see. I think you'll see a lot of you'll see a lot of comping of people going in the same way that, like, how many independent events were you able to take Leviathan Force Org to in 1.0? None.
None.
Like you'll just see no fear of the ancients and Contemptor Talons 0-1 is how people will soft comp it, and I think everyone will be fine. And then you will get these outlier events where people will be able to take 12 fucking dreadnoughts,
and why not?
Yeah, and that's kind of it, right? It should be reserved for special occasions. Yeah. It shouldn't be the norm. And if it becomes the norm, that's what I think is.
Yeah. And I mean, we're going to talk about the right of war next, but even taking the right of war, there's ways of kind of nerfing yourself, because I love the idea of a table full of loads of infantry and loads of fucking Contemptors and dreadnoughts just stomping across the battlefield. I think it'd look fucking wicked.
That's exactly. I'm taking that exact same list on. I'm playing the game Monday, Iron Warriors, and I'm taking no vehicles. I'm taking 120 infantry and 3 dreadnoughts.
That's awesome. But I think you need to have that conversation with the person you're playing before you.
100%.
That's all it's about, isn't it? It's about being a fucking adult.
Yeah.
And not ruining your
break everything. Yeah.
I mean, I've had one game, and my experience was I played against one dreadnought and it did fuck all. They put it on the left flank, I put everything else on the right flank. It literally did nothing called tear. All game, sorry. I had my Leviathan, and for once my Leviathan felt like it should do. I wasn't worried that a single last cannon shot is going to get lucky and ping it off the table turn 1. You still had to think about it, and you had to be careful, because the wounds, 6 wounds sounds good, but they soon start disappearing.
Yeah.
So you still couldn't just shove it down your opponent's throat and be like, yippee-ki-yay, like, fuck you. But I wasn't worried about it getting shot off a table turn 1 from a single fucking laser rapier.
Yeah. There are two other things that I would say. So number one is, I think that where before we saw loads of Kiris, dual Kiris assault cannons, I just don't think the Kiri stands up against it. Or sorry, I'll just create that. The other weapons are just as good as the Kiris now, so I don't think you will see that as the go-to Mortis option. I think that we'll see way more variation, and I think even now, like I really like the melter cannon option on the Contemptor, and I never would have taken that previously. The other thing as well is they are a bit kind of kamikaze style, the Contemptors, though, because if they blow up with a strength 8 blast. And actually, in both games, including my game with Paul, like Linneans have just been killed outright because he's just rolled a 1 and they got instant death. And so, like, if you just charge them down, their death is going to mean, make sure they're close to your opponent, because that explosion is going to take a few guys with it as well. So it's good.
Did we talk about the Dreadnought Talon roll? I can't remember if
so I did have a look on our break, and they, as soon as you put them down as a unit, they are separate. So is it the moment that you put them down next to each other, as soon as you put your hand off, they are then a unit. And
that's boring.
Okay, so that is the Dreadnought, the Contemptor Dreadnought. Like we said, like, it's powerful. You need to be aware of it. You need to think about how you're going to deal with Contemptors, because you're going to see Contemptors. But it's not broken the game. Like, don't start crying just yet.
But what has broken the game, Lee?
I don't know.
I thought you're about to show.
That was the cue for the next slide. I thought I'd set that up quite well there.
Well, yeah, but is anyone going to take this to a narrative event?
Yeah. I reckon.
People will definitely take this.
Well, okay. This has broken the game. Fury of the Ancients. So Fury of the Ancients, Rite of War. Effects in a detachment using this Rite of War: Legion Contemptor Dreadnought Talons may be taken as troop choices and must be taken as compulsory troops choices. Legion Contemptor Dreadnought Talons taken as troops in the detachment gain the line subtype. A single Legion Contemptor Dreadnought Talon in the detachment composed of only one Dreadnought must be selected as a detachment's compulsory HQ choice. A Legion Contemptor Dreadnought Talon selected in this manner must take the Venerable Ancient upgrade for 30 points, which basically gives it character Master Legion, fucking Eternal Warrior. And
I haven't read this. Jesus Christ.
In Von.
So what I would say about the Eternal Warrior on a Dreadnought chassis is that, like, brutal, like Eternal Warrior does fuck all against brutal, and it will only matter on Murderous Strike or something that is strength 14. I don't. Is there anything strength 14 in the?
No, I don't think so.
List?
Royal weapons, are they? I don't really know how they work. No, I don't.
So Murderous Strike, so Paragon Blades are the only thing, or Chain Fists are going to be the only thing that are not going to be as effective.
Yeah. And limitations: no model with Legiones Consularis special rule in a detachment using this Rite of War may select a consul choice other than Legion Forge Lord, Legion Primus Medicate, or Legion Mortificator.
Okay.
A detachment using this Rite of War may only include a single fast attack choice and a single heavy support choice.
Through the Barthans in a Talon. Great. Yeah, excellent.
That does not consist entirely of models with the Dreadnought unit type. So you can take as many heavy support Dreadnought.
Oh, right. So you can have 9 Leviathans potentially then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
A detachment using this Rite of War may not select any fortification choices. A detachment using this Rite of War may not select a Lords of War detachment.
Correct.
Rite of War may only be selected for an army's primary detachment. An army whose primary detachment is using this Rite of War may not roll to seize the initiative. So, thoughts on this? I feel like there's going to be a lot of thoughts on this.
Okay, so I think this is, if you read this as a kind of in its own little bubble, it's not that bad. The problem is, because you could just go, well, I'll just take 3 Dreadnoughts. I'll take a Venerable Ancient as my HQ, and I'll take 2 individual Dreadnoughts. The problem is the fact that people then go, take 40. They go, they start cramming them in, and they're instantly on eBay buying every fucking Dreadnought they possibly can, and robbing their fucking nan's purse to go and fucking get Leviathans. The problem is okay, I am going to say something controversial here. I think that we know that there is a huge influx of players that have come over and ported over from 40k and Age of Sigmar, and you are very welcome. This is a great game with an amazing community and some awesome hobby, and you're going to have a super good time. However, especially in those games where there is more of a focus on competitiveness, there is this, and I speak to someone who's played a lot of Age of Sigmar. I think it's a great game. I'm a big Age of Sigmar fan. Like, I think it is excellent, but there is a tendency to spam. And almost a condition, you are conditioned to kind of to spam something like it's MSU, but it's like 5 units of 10 of the same thing. Like, you look at a lot of the 40k lists, especially kind of in that kind of awful time when we had a few years ago, where it was like 8 Eldar or Dark Eldar flyers was like the list. You know, it was, I'm going to pick the powerful thing and run as many of them as I possibly can, rather than I want to pick the theme that I really like. And I really like dreadnoughts, right? I love and I do love dreadnoughts, but I am speaking hypothetically as someone who is dreadnoughts are the big thing for them. This is a really cool way of running a super duper, like, here's my character that's maybe suffered a mortal wound and been interred in this dreadnought, and now he's my venerable ancient, and he's brought his 2 blade guard along with him as his kind of, and then you fill it out with normal stuff, right? That would be a really cool way that I personally would really engage with this Rite of War. However, the tendency and the want is going to be, how many can I get in?
Yeah.
Divide the points by the amount of divide the points cost of the game by the amount of points a dreadnought costs. I can get 12.5 Contemptors in. Happy fucking days.
Yeah.
It seems Fury of the Ancients, it's always seemed a bit of a strange Rite of War to me, because already within the Legion list, you can take 12 Contemptors within the elite slots. If you're a Blood Angel, you can take them in the fast slots, and you can take 9 Leviathans in the heavy slots. So I do wonder, if you're Dreadnought mad, is there any need to take Fury of the Ancients Rite of War? But the danger is, of course, it's just the spam. Having them as troops choices or having them as line just means you can sit them on objectives now as well, and then they can just take a whole heap of fire and be indestructible. This Venerable Ancient is an interesting choice as well. I mean, the 4-up in bun save is going to be really, really good. I don't think it blows up because it hasn't got the automatic deflector array. I think is maybe the only.
I know it does, yeah. It does say, but not replacing all the effects.
Okay, but not replacing all the effects of automatic deflector. Okay, cool. Yeah, I just think exactly as we've said, it just needs to be regulated. And if you do take Fury of the Ancients, maybe just take your HQ, 2 in your troop, 2 in one troop slots, 2 in the other troop slots, and leave it at 5.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah. If someone turned up and said, I'm playing Fury of the Ancients, I've got 5 Contemptors, I'd be like, cool.
Very
but
well.
also as well,
Yes.
Also I'd kind of go, this is my theme. If someone kind of goes, this is a theme that really suits because of this, and this, here's the cool story backstory I've got behind it, I'll be like, right, I'm super engaged with this. And even if I get pounded into dust, this is, it sounds a bit wanky to say it, but this is kind of helping to sort of flesh out your own, like your opponent's narrative.
Yeah, good, great. Yeah. I think
that's cool. I can totally get behind that. What I can't get behind, and I won't get behind, is people just going, this is the meta choice. Dreadnoughts are shit hot, and if I do this, I can take 30 of them.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. That's the thing for me. If I was to run this Rite of War, I would do exactly what you said. I would run 1 as a HQ because you have to. I would run 1 in each compulsory troops choice because you have to. That's 3 dreadnoughts. Just because you have to take compulsory troops choices as dreadnoughts
doesn't mean you
can't take tactics. Huh?
Yeah, it also doesn't mean you have to take 6.
No, you take 1 per selection.
Yeah.
And then you can add some TAC Marines in, you can add some TAC support units in, you can add other stuff from this fucking huge book that, just because you're running Fury of the Ancients doesn't mean you have to run, like you said, 14, as long as you're filling out the compulsory troops choices, you do what you fucking like.
Here's an idea, right? Here's an idea. You've got your Venerable Ancient, and then you've got 3 Contemptors, right? Filling out 3 of your troops choices. Bang all 4 of those bishes straight into a Mastodon. Already, that is instantly a fucking much cooler way of doing it, right?
And I'm interested.
And then 2 Spartans with 20 Tap Marines inside, right? That would be. I would fucking love to play against that.
Yeah.
That'd be so cool.
I think that
that's actually a fucking good idea. I like that.
Yeah, it's cool. Where this is really concerning is Zone Mortalis. I think that's where
you'll just see it comped out. I think, to be honest with you, I think you'll go to any event organizer worth their salt will comp this out of any ZM games.
Yeah.
And any player, I think, that's got an eye on going to an event and having a good time will comp themselves out of taking this. I would like to think.
Again, it comes back to what was said before: the 1 dreadnought per 1,000 points +1. That instantly fixes this.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You can't take it at lower points levels, because if you play 1,000-point game and you take 2 dreadnoughts, that's fucking filth, because there's going to be less stuff your opponent has to deal with it. You take 2 dreadnoughts, 3 dreadnoughts, and a 3,000-point list. There's going to be more stuff that can deal with it.
Yeah.
So I instantly think that 1 per 1,000 +1, it's fixed. That's it. It's, I say fixed in the loosest term.
Yeah. I think it's sorted.
Yep. I definitely play against 2 dreadnoughts at 1,000 points if I knew I was playing against 2 dreadnoughts at 1,000 points, and that's also part of the issue as well.
Yeah.
So if you rocked up to an event and it hadn't been regulated, and some guy turns up with his 12 Contemptors in his Fury of the Ancients list, and you're paired up to play against him, how's that going to go down? What are you?
I'm not one of these. Oh, sorry, Rob. Yeah, you.
I think that. So let's just say you just have to. Like, it'd be very rare the times you just say, "I'm not going to play that." I know lots of people say, "Oh, I won't play that," but I think when it came down to it, I think it's unlikely that I think they just would. I think that you just have to play a tactical game, which is that you'd have to go after the Contemptors within the that have the line. So just avoiding the Leviathans if they've taken those, destroying the troops choice ones, and being clever about what exactly it is you are going after. I mean, the other thing is as well, don't forget, as we've said throughout the reactions, like, these things don't just fire once now, like a las cannon squad can fire, 3 times in a game turn, potentially. And I think that's the other thing as well. So there's much more fire going around, but as we've said, self-regulation. It's a shame because people love the dreadnoughts before, and I think like mass dreadnoughts look really cool. But I still really like it as a thing. But
I think people who take 12 Contemptors to an event are of clearly reduced intellect, and therefore you just need to play. Just the classic thing is play the mission, don't play the occasion.
Yeah.
Because they're just going to vote you thinking you're going to smash them to bits, and you just fucking nip around the side, clear off their objectives, play it sensible, and just try and have some fun.
Yeah. So for me to answer your question, Paul, is I think it's something that powerful Jason Mullen said. If he plays a tough list, he gives himself a goal within that list. So your goal for that game could be, I just want to kill the Venerable Ancient.
Yeah.
I don't care what else happens in that mission. My goal for this mission is to kill that Venerable Ancient. I know I've lost the game, but if I could, and that's how I take, if I'm going to play a game that I know I'm going to lose, and I know I can't even, because obviously play to the mission, but if you can't even win the mission because you're just going to get crushed, then give yourself little mission, just little goals.
It would be amazing as a limitation on that right of war, which is that if the Venerable Ancient goes, you lose automatically. Like, that would be that would sort that right of war out.
Because I mean, the irony is the old Fury of Ancients was fucking dog shit.
It was so bad.
Lost the victory point every time one died, and they just get one shot. So they've literally completely flipped it on its head. But yeah, like you say, if your Venerable dies, you can't, not necessarily say you automatically lose, but you can't win the game.
Yeah.
Then even if you get crushed, you're still drawing if you've killed the Venerable Ancient.
I think that would be cool. I think that actually event organizers should just put that in, and I think that sort that. And I think people would think very carefully about whether they wanted to take Fury of the Ancients as a right.
Uh-huh.
Cool. Fixed it.
Cool.
Well, that's done.
That's that done. Sorted.
Right. So our thoughts so far. So I mean, here we're just gonna have a bit of a kind of general chit chat, not for too long. Kind of where we think the game is. I mean, like we've said already, we're at the very start of learning this game. There's going to be lots of things that people discover and come out with, and even just like different groups have different interpretations of rules. So until you start playing events, you know, there's going to be things that someone might have discovered that no one else realizes. So yeah, just a kind of general thoughts so far on the games you've played. Everyone's had a game so far, haven't they?
Yeah, just the one from me.
Yeah, just the one for me. Yeah. How did you find it? How did you find it, Rob?
So I 1.0 needed a refresh because eventually, if you play the same game for 10 years, it just gets fucking boring. That's bottom line.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
And the reason why I'm particularly enjoying this is because there's new rules. It's a new intellectual challenge. There's new connections that you're making, and that is quite fun. And I think it's certainly way more tactical than it was in previous editions. And that's why I like this show in particular, and just spending a Saturday morning talking about it, because it's just interesting to hear other people's thoughts. I think that it's really great to see the influx of new people, but I would say that I think that probably the older, more experienced players have an advantage because of the what I found is that they've got a bit of an advantage because of the weapons already in their arsenal. So lots of new players seem to be taking just kind of like the box set because it's just what's available in plastic at the moment. Whereas us sort of grizzled old veterans tend to have a few more toys to play with that can do slightly different and more interesting things. So it's been interesting playing new people as well. But I think that will flatten out as more plastics kind of come to the fore. I'd say, having played Imperial Fists, they are extremely powerful, from their warlord traits to their advanced reactions to the war gear. They feel like a really powerful legion. They look powerful on paper, but they play really powerfully as well. I think Paul would probably kind of echo that sentiment sentiment as well. But I think it's in a really, really healthy place, and I think it's great. Yeah, I think the new game is better than the old one.
Cool. Paul, how did you get on with your games?
Yeah, it was good. Just had the one against Rob. We got another one coming up this week. It's good. I really like the reactions. I think they're a great backwards and forwards interaction. I really like playing AT. Played a few games in Necromunda, and I kind of like that. The fact that you're constantly engaged, that's like a nice and refreshing from me. Be interesting to see what happens. We've covered it quite a bit in this episode, talking about the tanks and the dreadnoughts and how things are going to change. People, there's lots of chat, WhatsApp and Facebook groups. Tanks are dead, this, that, and the other. Just be interesting to see what happens over the next few months, and if that kind of all changes and people self-regulate with certain
that's actually really interesting. So one thing that I've thought for since our game actually, Paul, is that tanks are, for me, tanks are dead. Not so much that they can't react, although that is a factor, but because there is no armored ceramite now, and there is quite a lot of melter, and melter is relatively cheap to get on a Contemptor chassis, it means that they are that much less survivable than they were. Armored ceramite missing from the war gear options has made them way less survivable, I think, for me, which is partly why that they're not as good as they were.
Which I find interesting, because would you put armored ceramite on a Rhino if you could?
No, but I certainly, and I think the fellas on the Merchant Prince thing's made a good point, which is that any sort of major Armour 14 assault vehicle probably should have it as an option to buy, because it's an assault vehicle that's aimed to get to, in the enemy lines. So having it as an option on Spartan and having an option on a Land Raider probably would have been worth some consideration, because those things need to be survivable to get you guys in. Now, I think they're just, from range melter, I think that they're just too vulnerable, I think.
Interesting.
I'd prefer armored ceramite than a flare shield on a Spartan.
Okay.
Yeah.
John, how did you get on with your games?
I don't really necessarily want to talk about my games. I'm just super excited for Heresy. Yeah. And I think that what it's given, my thoughts so far are that like it's in a really good place. Like the game is in a good place. It plays really nicely. So far it plays really nicely. There's some extra little kind of nuances which are, something else to kind of get your teeth into. But just the general kind of hubbub and excitement. Like I've got like 5 or 6 like WhatsApp chats and Facebook groups, or like messenger groups for kind of various different kind of communities that I'm kind of a part of, and they're all like buzzing up, like all popping off. Like you just can't keep pace with what people are chatting about and what people are doing, and the amount of hobby that you just see. It's just absolutely like I can't contain my excitement. Like I sit down to try and do something else that isn't Heresy related, and all I'm thinking about is like, oh man, I can't wait to get home and build. I need to build a 5-man melter like support squad and a rhino. Maybe I could build as a command rhino. Maybe I could do this. Maybe I could do that. Yeah. And that's what I'm enjoying so far. I think the game's in a good place. I think the miniatures that we're seeing are wonderful. Oh man, like I'm just excited. Like I'm really excited for the kind of the winter when the nights sort of draw in a little bit, and we've got 6 months under our belt. We'll have seen, maybe we might even have seen an FAQ by that point, but we'll certainly have seen the Mechanicum. We'll have seen probably the Talons list and maybe the Solar Auxilia list. We'll have everything available to us. We'll have that kind of whole sort of toolbox of kind of rules and minis and all the nukes. And then just kind of really just getting our teeth into it. I'm just buzzing for Heresy right now. I really am.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
It's been a long time coming, hasn't it? Because
we've suffered through the wilderness, and here we are. Like we've been led to the promised land, and it really is. Yeah, it really does feel like everything that we kind of hoped it would be. Certainly from my perspective, anyway.
I agree. Like I've only had one game, and it's probably one of the best games I've had in ages. Even though we had like some hastily put together armies, half of it wasn't painted, which is
but doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
No, that's the thing. And it was great. There were so many fucking moments of like, that's amazing. The things I found, well, one of the things I found with my games is I need a cheat sheet, because like I struggle to remember half the shit, just with the changes in rules. I just found like if I had a cheat sheet, like, rather than keep flicking through a massive rule book, if I could just have all the units, it's easy fixes. And also the changes in close combat took me by quite surprise. Like weapon skill 5, throwing a weapon skill 4.
Yeah, that's one up on weapon skill is powerful now.
I was actually surprised, and we had some real moments. I charged my Gal Vorbak into a squad of some Thousand Suns bullshit. And obviously my Gal Vorbak was weapon skill 4 and the Thousand Suns are weapon skill 5. And I thought I was going to crush him. I absolutely thought, like, one turn, I've done them all. And then it's like, oh, fuck, I'm hitting on 5s. And I had no means of re-rolling those to hit.
It was the same with me and Paul, wasn't it? Where the Linnaeans were weapon skill 4, and it was really hard for them to hit the Templar breath for him.
Yeah. And this is kind of what I think about when people are looking at units and they're looking at rules and they're reading it and they're like, oh, that's not too bad, or oh, that's really powerful. Until you actually play it, we don't know. And that's where we should just be having fun, just playing, seeing different things, seeing what works, what doesn't work for you, and don't worry too much about people banging on about, oh, fucking dreadnoughts are OP. Just run the list you want to run, like, just have fun with it and get it to work. Like librarians, people are like running librarians. And again, the way people had been going on about librarians, I thought librarians were going to be completely OP. And they weren't. They were good. They did some really good things, but it wasn't like, oh, this has ruined the game, I give up, this is bullshit. They were just some fun moments. Like, it just, I think it's in a really good place.
Yeah, I'm super hyped for Heresy right
now.
Yeah. So yeah.
One thing you mentioned, John, was a fact, and this is one of the things we were talking about at my local club. And I don't know if you guys agree with this or not, but I was kind of saying I would rather play a game with rules that don't really work or need fixing and having a FAQ kind of like once a year or something than what they've got in 40k at the minute, where you've got.
No, I don't want to balance in every 6 months. No. Do you remember the Red Book FAQ that we had in about 2017? I want to say 2018.
Yeah.
And that really did feel like a fact. These are the actual frequently asked questions. We're going to errata some stuff. We're going to make some little changes. And I'd much rather, for starters, we need a lot of time to settle the game down. And I think
reactions help no one. Yeah.
There might be we might need a little clarification where there's some ambiguity, because there's clearly a thought process behind how it should work. And I think if the team constantly see people playing it in a way that wasn't intended, it's easy enough just to go, by the way, it should work like this.
Yeah.
Like a proper FAQ/errata, I'd rather give it 12 months and wait till everyone's rules are out and everyone's playing and there's loads and loads of Battlefield data before we start going, maybe we should make Medusa's AP3 as opposed to AP4. Maybe we should make Contemptor Talons 0-1. Maybe we should do this. Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should reintroduce Armored Ceramite. That's what I'd like to see personally. But overall, I would say it's 95% towards excellent.
Yeah, and I think the community is good as well. We just kind of work out, if there's a rule that everyone's a bit like, oh, I don't know, it could be that way, it could be this way. Eventually, it just sorts itself out, doesn't it? And people tend to start playing it a certain way.
Yeah, and consensus is you generally reach a consensus on it, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm super excited. Yeah, mega excited. Anyone else got any other thoughts on that?
I'm just most looking forward to somebody trying to put Shrouded on their Contemptor.
You just going, hello.
No,
really looking forward.
I think it would be good if people can maybe just spend 10 seconds, just chuck in the comments what their thoughts are so far. I'm really interested to see people outside of our kind of local, or kind of our cliques, what people are enjoying so far, what people like, what people don't like.
I'm really interested to hear from their perspective, actually, if you have done deep striking, particularly Blood Angels players or anything in a Leviathan drop pod or something like that, what the experiences are. Did it survive? Did it not survive? That's what I'm really interested to hear about.
That's a good one.
I just want to hear people's comments. I think people spend some time, comment, make sure you like it, make sure you give us a little subscribe, because there's a lot of effort from Lee that goes into making this. Yeah. And we're pushing on for 1,000 subscribers now, and that's when life tends to get quite serious. So be quite nice if we get over that little hump.
Paul, any thoughts? Any final thoughts?
No, not from me. I think we've covered it. Yeah, it's all good. I'm just looking forward to playing more games, getting more, getting a little bit better tactically.
That's the real quiz, isn't it? Looking forward to playing games is the real quiz.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. All right then. That is our thoughts so far. So, kind of little outro. Cryptic Cabin are holding an event on the 6th of August. Loyalist vs Traitor Narrative, 2,500 points, 1-day event, £20 a ticket. If you go to their website and click on the events in the top right, that'll take you through to there. Have a look at that, check that out. And like I've already said, please go check out Heresy on the Hill. And if you can, give a little bit of money. We'll put the link below. And yeah, it's fucking cancer, isn't it? Anything that we can give is good, because it can affect all of us. I don't know I feel like everyone nowadays knows someone who's been affected by cancer. So please give all you can. And that's us. Please keep putting things on for the pictures for #HeresyHammer. Like and subscribe, that helps us. If you've got any messages you want to send us any of your lists for us to talk through, any weird and wonderful and wacky lists you've been coming up with?
Yeah, I'd really like to see what people are running at the moment. I think some list submissions would be really cool. We can maybe do a little special where we run through some.
Yeah. So please email that to us, heresyhammer30k@gmail.com. Any comments, anything you've got to say, anything we got wrong, if we've got any rules wrong, because let's face it, it's going to happen. It's a new edition. We're going to get things wrong or interpret things differently to other groups. So again, let us know in the comments. And that is it from me. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
See you later, guys.
Adios.
See you on the next one.